Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all new season of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. That's right folks, we're formally here today to commence Season 12 of the ever popular, everlasting GT3 series, which come the end of 10 rounds of racing is going to answer the question, who are going to be our masters of the GT3 class racing car. We are back once again to do dueling on circuit and in the pit lane as well, and we look forward to seeing how all our drivers will get on today as they embark on their journey. Where exactly do we begin the story today? We're here in Germany at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit, a circuit that was once a rapid-fire tour through the local forestry and arguably one of the high-speed circuits on the European continent, rivaling the likes of Monza. Well, over the course of its history, it has evolved, and as of 2002, through the design fascinations of Hermann Tilke, it has become a much more technical circuit. Now, 2.84 miles in length, consists of 16 corners as well. Gone are the days of charging into local forest, and the tarmac has gradually been taken over by nature. And now, its nature, in terms of the circuit, is one that is highly technical, where arena sections, hairpins, and long straights all come together to create a circuit whereby you've got to make a key decision. Do you set your car up for success on the straight and high speed, or do you focus entirely on the corners and look to maximise your corner entry, mid-apex, and exit speeds, knowing you could be vulnerable on the straights? Well, it's going to be a good test for our drivers as they get themselves ready to take on an all-new season, and come the end of today we may see some early favourites, or at least those who can set up the car for success correctly. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on the one and only place you can catch all the racing action for the Thursday GT3 Championship here at SimRacing International, and is of course on our YouTube channel, youtube.com, and search for SimRacing International SRI, and you'll be able to catch it all there. Now you're tuning into the Superstars split. Now we have two splits this season, like previous seasons where we've had split A and split B. But things have changed to a degree, and we're going to bring you up to speed with what exactly has happened with regards to our splits and all the new rule changes and regulations. But because we are in the Superstar split, we are going to be focusing very heavily on what has changed for Superstars, as well as giving you a brief summary of what's happened when it comes to Masters as well. And that's, of course, if you just did miss the pre-season events last week, well, of course, we made our way to Sebring International Raceway, and we got to see all the drivers make their way out on circuit, albeit not for points, but for bragging rights there, and also giving them an extra opportunity to get themselves ready for the what was the 12 hours of Sebring. And well, we got to see plenty of drivers really impressed there, and we'll bring you up to speed of who looked good at Sebring. But we're here today in Germany, of course, and this is where points are truly going to matter. Now, the Masters split is being broadcasted simultaneously live for this round, and you'll catch it on our YouTube channel, and you'll be in the very capable hands of Chaz Draycott and Darren Thacker. Meanwhile, if you stay with Superstars, you'll be in the capable hands of myself, or at least I hope I'm capable. My name is Paul Walsh, and I will bring you all your racing action as it unfolds, the entirety of the season here from Superstars. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how all of our drivers get on and sharing the story with you, ladies and gentlemen. But in terms of getting on with things, well, let's get on with it and bring you up to speed with them with what's new for Season 12 and what exactly we can expect coming into this round. So firstly, let's take a look at our calendar, and what a calendar we do have. On the 26th of March, we made our way to Sebring, and well, we'll bring you up to speed with the pre-season event. But focusing more on the calendar here, we can see we have got an absolute best hits collection of GT3 racing circuits for this season. We begin at the Hockenheimring, of course. In a week's time, for round number 2, we make our way to the circuit Spa of Francorchamps, and the wet weather is expected there on the 9th of April. Then in round number 3, we make our way to the Mugello circuit in Italy, and then it's going to be the fast-flying bends and limited overtaking opportunities that will definitely try to outfox and outwit our drivers on the 16th of April, after which we then head to Japan for the Fuji International Speedway, where it's an incredibly long start-finish straight, contradicting its multitude of corners, which see the average apex speed gradually wind down and then very sharply decline for its final sector. Then round number 5, we head to the United Kingdom for the home haunt circuit. That is, of course, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit on the 30th of April, and then it will be into the second half of the season. We immediately charge with everybody's favourite, or should we say second favourite Belgian circuit, is going to, of course, be Circuit Zolder. And then in round number 7, on the 14th of May, we make our way back to Japan for the Suzuka International Racing Courses Grand Prix circuit. We couldn't have a season without that. And then on the 21st of May, we head to France, the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. The circuit has been overshadowed somewhat by the Circuit Paul Ricard in recent decades, but is a circuit not to be forgotten about. And then our penultimate round, we make our way back to the US of A for the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, the roller coaster rider road racing in round number 9 on the 28th of May. And into start of June, we end the season. And well, what a circuit to go to. We'll have our Donington Decider, if we do steal the term from the British GT Championship, because that's where we'll be at Donington Park's Grand Prix circuit, and we will be bringing the curtain down the 4th of June in round 10 of 10. So a brilliant calendar indeed, so many brilliant circuits. We have tried to stay in alignment with the official iRacing series wherever possible, but there were some circuits that we took a look at the administration here at SimRacing International and thought, you know what, those circuits don't seem quite right for GT3 racing, not least at the caliber we want to exhibit, and therefore we did take a little bit of collective license and swap certain circuits out. But there is our calendar. Now, if you look to the right-hand side, you'll see that you have your Masters and your Superstars categories. Now, each series will be making its way to these circuits. We are not going to see two different calendars. What we are going to see is slightly different race formats on certain evenings, whereby we will be seeing the continuation of the 2x30-minute sprint race rounds, so rounds 2 and also 6 in the Masters. But in Superstars, we're keeping it simple. We're dialing it back to 10 one-hour races, one an evening, and therefore it's going to the raw, classic 60-minute endurance racing action that you all know and love from GT3 racing machines. And that's exactly what our drivers want to get on with the Superstars. And therefore, you could say this encapsulates a little bit of a theme when it comes to the Superstars, in the fact the Masters, that's a bit more of a hardline, hardcore experience. The instant point limits are much more aggressive. Indeed, there is no room for error in Masters, and if you pick up damage in Masters, you can't fast repair it. Meanwhile, in Superstars, we retain our fast repairs. We also have higher instant point limits, more on those very shortly, and that's why the key difference is there. Superstars is a little bit more easygoing, indeed, particularly for drivers who perhaps don't have the patience to have to worry about every little door knock or whatnot, and also perhaps just want a little bit more of a forgiving experience when it comes to the occasional contact, which happens in GT3 racing like it would happen in any other racing format, a simulated alternative in real life. But you'll see the weather conditions there. We do have wet weather rounds, and we also do have a big question mark about the mixed conditions that are going to be on display in round number 9 at Road Atlanta. And those weather conditions will be matched between Masters and Superstars, so it's not going to be that one round is going to see a certain group race split have wet weather, whereas the other will have sunny weather. We will be seeing the simulation of those conditions to be the same across both of the series formats, whether it be the Master split or the Superstar split. So hopefully that gives you a good pitch there of what you can expect when it comes to two splits there. But in terms of prizes, well, there's no difference in prizes between either of our splits. Well, we do have up to 50 personalised driver trophies to be won. Now, we do have 3 driver classes in each of our splits for the purposes of this season. Masters and Superstars have Pro, they have Inter and Evo, and this is a big change this season, and we are aligning this across all the SimRacing International series, whereby we are going from 3 or 4 classes in terms of drivers down to a solid core of 3. So therefore, what you will have seen in season 11 was none other than the combination of Split A having Elite and Pro, and Split B we of course had Premier and Evo, whereas now we are seeing the amalgamation of Elite and Pro into a single Pro class, and you could say that some of the lower Pro drivers in that previous format have made the way to the top end of Inter, but Inter really is now the replacement for the bottom end of Pro and also the majority of Premier. And meanwhile, the Evo category, well, it's Evo's listed there, but we have recently renamed it to Club, and therefore it does mean we are going to have 3 classes formally. It will be Pro, Inter and Club. So therefore, whenever you see Evo, think of Club now, and that gives you a good idea of how we change the classes. And we will see in each of our splits, Masters and Superstars, there will be trophies up for grabs on much loved and much coveted trophies for the top 5 drivers in each of those classes, and that means we've got 15 drivers trophies up for grabs in Masters and Superstars, and then we also do have trophies up for grabs for the drivers of all 5 of the top teams, and we will be seeing those teams championships across Masters and Superstars, much like we've seen in previous seasons of Split A and Split B, where they are combined together, and you'll see that again here. So therefore, everybody's got something to play for, even if they're not the fastest in Masters or Superstars, they're still contributing to their team's success, and we look forward to seeing exactly how they're going to contribute as the season goes on. But with that, of course, we now come to our race rules, and as we can see here, focusing now on Superstars, because that's what you're going to be tuning into today and throughout the season if you do follow this split. As we can see there, we do have the split of the classes. Driver classes are Pro, Inter and Club. Pro being the quickest drivers out there, the fastest of the fastest. Inter are those looking to transition from perhaps those who don't have as much time to practice to the absolute quickest out there and having to put as much practice in as humanly possible. And then Club is for those who perhaps don't have as much time to practice but still want to have an absolute blast and a full of enthusiasm as well. And indeed, we changed the names here because we did feel as though that some of the names were slightly discriminatory in terms of our drivers' abilities and their expectations. But for the Superstars, car setup wise, well, we still have open setups. What we can see is the fuel loads have been restricted to 75%. So this is a slight increase in the amount of fuel available. It has gone up from 70% to 75%. And therefore it does mean for our drivers now they have a little bit more tactical flexibility when it comes to strategy, whereby the theoretical pit window is going to be wider compared to where it was in previous seasons. So expect drivers to perhaps go a little bit longer in the race or perhaps pit even earlier if they're going for the all-important undercut. Now, in terms of our races, the instant point limits have been adjusted thus. The drive-through penalty limit is still at 18. We've kept that the same. That's not going to change, but the disqualification has come up from 26 to 28. So therefore, it's a little bit more forgiving for our Superstars drivers. And I'll tell you one thing, these are a lot more forgiving than in Masters. And, well, we'll leave it there as mentioned earlier on. I do believe the points were somewhere in the region of 14 and 19, if I remember correctly, for Masters. And that just gives you a flavour of the difference there. So Superstars just a little bit more forgiving when it comes to any mid-race instance. But otherwise, the rules are the same for Superstars as Season 11. So therefore, we do have our fast repairs. We do, of course, have what is quite lenient qualifying track limit. You name it, it's all been retained. And this is really the continuity series, as we did mention in the post-race broadcast of the pre-season event at Sebring, whereby we're really maintaining the rules of the past here in the Superstars, and we're experimenting with a much stricter set of rules for Masters. So therefore, we talked about our calendar, we talked about our prizes, and we talked about our rules. And, well, we're going to be bringing you to our drivers very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But let's talk a little bit about our host circuit for today, because round number 1 is going to be held here at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg Grand Prix circuit, located at the Am Motterdam in Hockenheim in the state of Baden-Württemberg in Germany. 2.84 miles in length or 4.57 kilometers, depending on your preference of units. But what never changes is the number of quarters, 16 of them in total. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track map that comes with it. Now, as we can see, our drivers will have to deal with a mixture of long straights, particularly dominating the first half a lap. And as they roar the way down the start-finish straight and up towards Nord Curve at turn 1, the northern corner, they'll have to make sure they don't hit the sausage curve too high. Get it absolutely right, they'll head up to Einfurt Parabolica, the hairpin at turn 2, which comes out through the kinks of 3 and 4, and it's flat out all the way through Parabolica curve and up towards the split scare hairpin at turn number 6. Hard on the brakes there at the lowest speed corner, they'll come back on themselves to a 180-degree hairpin and make their way into the first of the 2 stadium sections. First up is the Mercedes Arena at turn 7 through to 10. When it's a quick right-hander, followed up by a heavy braking zone into a sharp left-hand right-angle corner at turn number 8, and then they'll go for the switchback sequence of left into right at turns 9 and 10 before going on a short stretch of road and in towards the main stadium section that begins with the Mobile 1 curve at turn number 11. A corner which is absolutely unforgiving if you get it wrong. You've got to go as late as humanly possible to the apex, but of course you've got to be brave to be able to do that in the dry, let alone in the wet. But we're seeing dry conditions today, and as they make their way out that corner, it's then into the heavily cambered turn number 12, where you can carry a lot more speed than it looks so you can carry, and then they'll make the way for the sweeping left and right of 13 and 14, and in towards Sud curve or South curve at turns 15 and 16. The double right there, where track limits are definitely going to be very strict as they make their way out and on to another lap or to that final lap checkered flag. So that is a lap of the Hockenheimring. We'll bring you plenty of onboards when we do go over to the qualifying session. And in fact, speaking of that, we can make our way over there now, ladies and gentlemen, and let's bring you up to speed of how our drivers are doing in qualifying and who looked very impressive in the pre-season event. So as we do see here, Milton Tomlinson Dennis, he was not on the grid for the purposes of the pre-season event for the Samantha Tan racing team, although he is joined by Liam Seeley for this season. They have mixed up the team name there and also mixed up the team as a whole. And new members of Milton Tomlinson Dennis, you could argue in his Lamborghini Huracan Evo Mark 1 was arguably one of the unluckiest drivers of season 11 when it came to being in the elite class, whereby nothing went quite right, and in the end he was denied major points. And when he did have a golden opportunity to pick up some huge points in the Nürburgring, of course there was a major technical issue that set him back multiple places when he was breathing down the neck of Hayden Miller. So therefore, first and foremost, you can imagine the 329 driver is going to be hoping he has better luck this season, albeit he's going to be in the firm company of plenty of close rivals, including his teammate of Liam Seeley, who we see here bringing the Corvette 06 GT3R C8 rendition. But just before we carry on the story of saying hello to our drivers, we do say hello to a good number of you there in the YouTube chat, including other than Taito Nation, and good evening to you, good sir. I believe that is James Howarth, who says, shame I'm not in here as I'm in the Old Faithful, and he's of course going to be at Masters in the Ford Mustang GT3's return to the old Cawte engine 5-litre V8, and I wish you all the best of luck, James, with that endeavour. We also say hello to Daniel Newman Racing Special Account there. Good evening to you, good sir, and they wish the best luck to all driving tonight, particularly the DNR eSport boys. And of course we do have 2 Daniel Newman Racing teams. We have red and blue, and I do believe we have a mixture of their drivers in this split as well as in the Master split. We also do say hello there to Vault9 C5B, who says good early afternoon from the US state of Oregon, and good afternoon, good sir. I hope you're doing well. As Leon Seeley there parks up, and I think that's going to be a tow to the pits. But having said hello to a few of you in the chat, and if you are able to access the chat, don't be shy, feel
free to say hi. We don't bite here at SimRacing International. The only biting you're going to be seeing will be on the brakes into those heavy braking zones, but thankfully you won't see any lockups because our drivers do have ABS or anti-lock braking systems on these cars. As we do also say hello to Marcus Clayton, 6581, who says good luck to all drivers today. So, we say hello to a few people, and indeed, let's continue to set the scene. But what exactly do you need to know from Sebring? Well, we had 40 drivers who attended, as in a big 4-0, out of our 60 entrants this season. Here today in Germany, we currently do have a grand total of 56 drivers who have made the trip to Germany, so almost the entirety of the grid. Of course, there's a drop score of rounds 1 to 9, so therefore if a driver does need to miss around or chooses to miss around, they do have the opportunity there not to lose out entirely. This is not a championship. We are forced to take part in every round, although you must be on the grid for the season finale, otherwise you will score 0 points in it, and that will go to your championship stands. We cannot drop the final round for the season. Those are the rules. But what we did get to see at Sebring, when nobody was in a class, but of course now drivers have been assigned to driver classes, of which in that driver's time and talent on the left-hand side, indeed you'll see against their names, you have red for the pros, you have green for the inters, and you have blues for the evos. Well, starting at the very top pro, and overall it was Brandon Dyer who took the victory in the pre-season event. Here he is in the Altitude 3M Esports Ford Mustang as he parks up on the outside of turn number 12. That's quite an interesting place to park, but to be fair, he seems to be out the way. He'll tow to the pit lane, but he definitely was one of the quicker drivers out there. He missed out on pole position, interestingly, as we see him parked up there by the best part of what was almost 4 attempts to Joris Peeters Weem, but in the race he was able to work with Richard Simnor to close the gap to Peeters Weem, and after passing him for the lead on lap number 9, he was then able to break away, as it was Peeters Weem and Simnor who were fighting incredibly aggressively all the way through the race for the second place spot. So Brandon Dyer in the end, he may not have had the qualifying points he wanted, but he did have the race pace, and that seems to be the theme here in this qualifying session. But of course, if he was the quickest there, well, we look to Richard Simnor as he makes one around for DCW Racing, bringing the Corvette. We do have the DCW Racing boys on the grid for this season, which is brilliant to see. And Simnor, of course, no stranger to the SimRacing International Series, particularly the Sunday Series. At one point, of course, our elite champion. And he was unsuccessful in his title defence for Season 17. He was the Season 16 champion. As he makes his way on through right now, he's currently the 11th fastest overall and 10th fastest in the Pro class. I do wonder he's still trying to find a little bit more pace out there, because he was very quick in qualifying at Sebring. But of course, here today, different circuit, different style of circuit, it does mean those qualifying times aren't always indicative. But that was the story at the front of the field in the pro and overall categories. What about in Inter? Well, there was one name that definitely delivered a brilliant day, albeit it was also because of the fact we did have a huge incident at the start of the race. On the open lap for the first 3 quarters, we had an incident in the midfield that did wipe out a large number of Inter drivers who were in attendance. The one driver who did not get caught up in it all was Adrian Howard. And in the end, Howard doing a brilliant job of surviving the madness that played out. Now, is he here today? I do wonder. We're just taking a look around circuit side. He is. He's in the pit lane. He's parked up towards the back of the pit lane there. Can we get a closer camera angle? And the answer is no, but we can get a higher one, so you can see his car parked up behind what is the MJK Sim Racing machine, I do believe at Denny Ploger. But the theme of Adrian Howard's day was he started 3rd in class. It was overshadowed by a very impressive pole lap from Jared Love, of which Jared Love currently out there. Here you can see the DDK Racing driver with racestats.com, and as he makes his way on through, in fact racestatbot.com I should say, well, it might have been Jared Love who took pole position, but the open lap incident wiped him out of the race. Indeed, all the DDK Racing team got wiped out on the opening lap, and therefore they had a miserable day before they even completed 3 corners, and it was Adrian Howard in the end who was able just simply to tour away. Albeit we did get to see what was a very interesting set of battles behind, including the likes of Frank Busen, who got involved in the thick of the fighting, and therefore it was Adrian Howard's race to win, whereas for Frank Busen he had to try and hold on as best he possibly could. And as for the club class, well, it was a 1-2 for MJK Sim Racing, and the name that took victory, well, out of the two of them, Denny Ploger and Arno Prague, was Arno Prague, who you see here right now in the Jägermeister Porsche, and as he makes his way on around, he definitely was the king of the town at Sebring, albeit his teammate Denny was never too far away, albeit in the end with Inter drivers trying to recover their way through the field, and also a couple of pros trying to make a bit of a recovery late on. We did see the two teammates separated in the end by a couple of places overall, but they were never really put under major pressure. Now, could you say it was because of the open lap incident that we did see play out from the middle of the pack? To a degree, perhaps yes, but what we also got to see, of course, was the fact the two drivers did really lay down a big marker. But of course, Sebring may not have been the best of markers in understanding who are going to be the pre-season favourites, because whilst, yes, we did see MJK Sim Racing really deliver at Sebring, keep in mind everyone was practicing for the 12 hours of Sebring at that point, or a large number of drivers were, but some may not have been. And therefore, what it does mean, effectively, is that coming into today, we might be in a bit of a position whereby, for some drivers at least, well, they'll have practice a bit more for the Hockenheimring compared to Sebring, and therefore they might just be feeling a little bit more dicey here. So that's always one to consider. And as we do come back to the top of the tower at the moment with 11.5 minutes to go in qualifying, it's Milton Tomlinson Dennis who is looking to be the quickest of them all, at least at the moment. And well, he's got a bit more work to do, perhaps, if he does want to try and make sure he's guaranteed to be on pole, because whilst we do have Justin Hembery currently almost 3 tenths behind, or 3 tenths that can be very quickly found in a lap of qualifying here in the SimRacing International Series, we've seen that time and time again. But we talked about winners and the people who stood out the most at what was Sebring. What about other special performances there? Did we see any moments of brilliance? Well, this man definitely showed some moments of brilliance in the pro and overall category, and it was Elliot Cawte there who we see on the grid. And I've had the pleasure of seeing Elliot race in other series. He's raced in particular in League Zero's Formula Series, open wheel racing there in Super Formula SO23 cars. And well, when you put him in a closed cockpit machine, he seems to be just as qualified, and he's currently the full fastest out there in qualifying at the moment, with 38.192 being his lap he's just set, but his previous best has been a 36.59, which I think he's trying to gear himself up towards right now. And indeed, he is only 400ths, if not that, off of Nils Bocage, who right now the Lamborghini driver currently looking to be third fastest there and still trying to find 200ths to get onto that front row versus Justin Hembery. But then we do have that sizable gap of almost 3 tenths to the pole sitter. But coming back to Elliot Cawte, as he makes his way through Parabolica Curve at the moment, well, he definitely did have some solid moments, particularly with his qualifying pace, and also in the race he got involved in the thick of the fighting. But things also did go a little bit wrong at certain points as well, so therefore we never got a true glimpse of what he'd be able to do. And Justin Hembery the same. He found himself in the end having a bit of a difficult opening few laps, and it really forced him out of contention with some damage to the car. But now it's all back to normal here, and he's currently the second fastest out there on an out lap as well, and we'll catch up with him a little bit later. In the interclass, did we see any other notable mentions? Not really, because so many drivers did get caught out by the instance at Sebring on that open lap. But in the club class, well, we did see a bit of a strategic masterclass for Dwayne Hoffman, who's currently in the pit lane, not in the car. So Hoffman not going out there. He's currently down in 52nd place overall, or 16th in the club class. So we look forward to seeing what he may be able to do from there, because he wasn't the quickest on qualifying pace. He definitely was able to avoid trouble and came all the way through in the end to bring on through a strategic masterclass to a third place finish. And Ashley Shucksmith was not too far behind. Speaking of Ashley, here he is in the Ferrari 296, and what a lovely liveried machine there, and well, the KFC machine, and I can't think of an abbreviation to replace Kentucky Fried Chicken there in terms of trying to make it relatable to a Ferrari and make it related to speed. But he'll be hoping that today is going to be Ferrari looking good. There we go, we'll use the catchphrase there. And Shucksmith makes his way on down, albeit taking a bit of brass down. I think that was not by design. I wonder if he knows he's on camera there and just having a little bit of a nervous reaction. Hopefully not. We don't want to put him under any nervous reactions, but he comes on down in towards the hairpin right now. We wish him, and indeed every driver here today, the best of luck on their season at start. We've got plenty of fresh faces here on the grid for this season as well, so therefore it really is going to be the first day back in school, if the pre-season event was not, as we do see Sean Clark making his way around, and as he does so, well, in 54th place at the moment, still some more work to do for him as well. But Clark will be hoping that things can come together gradually over time. Builds up a bit of speed here. Well, right now, Clark definitely, I think, feeling as though when he's down in 54th place, there is a lot of work on that horizon. But with regards to a lap, let's get you on board one, ladies and gentlemen, and see what it's all about to deliver a solid lap here at the Hockenheimring. As we do see Corey Price of Darkwing Racing. Somebody gets it wrong in the rear of the picture. Who's that going off the road? It's a McLaren of some description. I think that might be Shucksmith going very sideways, unless I'm mistaken. But as Corey Price isn't around, we jump on board with him for a flying lap of the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg. So making his way up towards turn 1 in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, in towards Nord Curve, and jumping on the brakes there at the 50-metre board, down to 4th gear, and now flat out he goes all the way up towards turn 2. Getting ready to go into the braking zone once again here, looks to the left-hand side, braking just before the 100-metre mark, and down to 2nd gear, tights the apex, and now builds up the throttle here, using the turbo lag in order to be able to get on the throttle nice and early there for the Aston Martin, and now coming out turn 4, it's on to the first curve stretch. Coming down through turn 5 and up towards 6 he'll go here. We'll get towards his high speeds that you'll see over the course of the lap. Will he touch 6th gear? The answer is going to be, I believe, not quite. He's going to stay in 5th and then brakes the 150-metre board, coming all the way down the gearbox to 1st gear. Nice line through the hairpin there, and now back on the throttle immediately and going up towards turn 7 through to 8. Into the first stadium section he comes, in towards the Mercedes Arena. He'll go flat out through the right-hander. Expect 2 wides here in the race, and even more 3 wides coming into turn number 8 as he goes onto the brakes for a 100-meter board, down to second gear, lets the car roll out slightly and then shapes it over to the left-hand side to get into turn number 9 before open up turn number 10, and now full throttle out the corner he goes. Oh, goodness me, that's hitting the sausage curve there. That is going to be an invalidation lap, and Bryce is not going to be carrying on that lap any further in terms of being a valid one, but he comes on through Mobile 1 curve, and that gives you an idea of what it's like to go through turn number 11. He's going to carry this on at full pace to see what lap he was going to do, and now make his way through turn number 12. Braking at the 100-meter mark, down to second gear, and now be flat out here through 13 and 14, left into right. Making sure not to touch those curves because they do unsettle the car into the first part of Sud curve there, down to second gear, and now making his way through turn number 16, up to third gear, nice and early there to mitigate wheel spin, and that's a lap of the Hockenheimring Grand Prix circuit, brought to you by Corey Price, albeit won't be wanting to make that mistake coming out turn number 10 again, hitting the sausage curve and exit, which sent the car upwards and indeed sent it out wide. So Price has got a bit more work to do, but meanwhile Jared Love, I think he'll feel as though he's not got too much more work to do, as he's currently the fastest of all the Inter drivers out there for DDK Racing with racestatbot.com. And as he comes in towards turn number 1 with 6 minutes left to go, he's definitely looking quick out there. But right now, who's the next closest to him in the class? Well, it's Luke Van Gertel, who's down in 14th place. He does have 3 pros between himself and the next Inter driver. Gertel currently in the pit lane, and Nicholas Carlson also parked up in the pit. And Nicholas Carlson currently 16th in the third fastest Inter driver. Here's Joris Peeters Weem, and we're in the BMW M4 Evo machine, currently in 17th place on home soil for the car, but home soil does not seem to be a nice place for this BMW, and indeed right now still trying to find a bit more pace out there, but there is still time in this session, this qualifying session lasting 45 minutes, and of course we're bringing you the final approximately 15 minutes, or we will do in the rounds ahead. Of course we've been scene setting today, and we've not had championship stands to go through, so therefore it has meant we've seen a bit more qualifying, and we'll get to see all these drivers in full force. But let's look back to Bradley Setters. And Setters right now still trying to find a bit more time out there as he makes his way around, and towards the Mercedes Arena in the Relentless Racing car. We do have the Relentless Racing team here for this season. Lovely liveries on the car, it must be said. And Setters right now not quite setting the pace he wants, down in 26th, 19th in the Pro category. But then again, there's still some more work for him to do. As we do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat, including none other than Whittle, who's got eyes wide open there. We also say hello to Denny Ploger, and good evening to you, Denny. I hope you're doing well. Of course, Denny being what has been a podium finisher in multiple races, and indeed in championships, including third place in season 10 in Split B, where he did take third place in the Evo category. And we see him out there today in the MJK Sim Racing, the lean green racing machine, the wonderful Porsche he does drive, the Porsche 992, and he'll be door number 108. It really has been a veteran of these series, and one of those drivers you never count out, although he is currently in 4th place in the club class, with Christopher Petty just being the best part of what is a 10th quicker than him. And Petty right now here we can see on the other side of the circuit in a Porsche of his own. And it is interesting to see we've got a lot of Porsches in the club cars. It does seem as though the Porsche is one of those cars which is really accommodating to perhaps less experienced or drivers perhaps not on as quick pace by comparison. But the wonderful thing about the balanced performance we do have here on iRacing for the GT3s is that for the most part, most cars are highly competitive. There are some which are rarer than the unicorn when you see them on the grid, and that's why you'll notice that we only have one Audi out here, and that was the car we did see going sideways into the grass going out to turn 12 into 13. It was not Ashley Shucksmith, it was Martin Brandon's Audi R8 LMS Evo 2, and will this car being phased out of real life racing over the course of 2025 through to 2027, with Audi giving up its home manufacturer program to pursue Formula 1 success, but it still does support customer teams that race the Audi R8 LMS Evo 2 around the world, and this car is still very popular on grids, particularly in the GT World Challenge Europe with ComTU Racing and also Sandslot Racing, although I do believe they moved away from the car for this year, and also it's still a very popular car when it comes to racing out in the Asian sphere in the GT World Challenge Asia. But as we do see Martin Brandon making his way on through, of course, these cars do normally drip through down to series such as the Brit Car Endurance Championship and also the British GT Cup. So these Audis do have a home on grids, even if they're not seen in the best of the best series, such as IMSA and the FIA World Endurance Championship anymore. But Martin Brandon, definitely right now 13th out there and still enjoying the car, no doubt about it. And we do also say hello there as a time consumer. It gives a big love heart there to the Audi, indeed, the 4.8 litre V10 powered machine. And you'll see the same engine currently in Lamborghini's offering, although that will be going soon, because Lamborghini do have have their own offering. It's a Lamborghini engine manufactured by Lamborghini, I do believe, that will be going racing later on this year. And I wonder how long it'll be before we do see it arrive on iRacing, given the fact we haven't had the Evo 2 model come over, and the Evo 2 model has some slight aerodynamic refinements, and also the fact that it does have a very interesting brake bias switch, which actually changes the amount of engine braking that's put in under heavy load when you're going down the gears. But as for the Cawte, he returns, of course, for Beowulf Racing alongside his teammate Nicholas Carlson. And Nicholas Carlson, the man who we did really talk about the definition of being brave at certain points, he's got something special under his rear wing on the car, although we can't really see it at the moment. We'll try and show you that a little bit later if we can on the livery. Well, Cawte right now having raced in the Sunday Series, found mixed success in that, and racing in the Thursday Series, and very good to see him back out there once again, giving it his all. And the Beowulf team going to the Mercedes for this season, interestingly, and they have unified on a car, whereas the previous time we saw them racing, it was Cawte in a Porsche 992, and it was Carlson in a Lamborghini Huracan. So I wonder if by going with the same car, they can share a bit more data, and they decided to go with the 6.3 litre V8 naturally aspirated power plant of the Mercedes-AMG Evo 22, or in fact 2020 I should say, not 22, and well, getting my numbers mixed up there with regards to years of some of the models, but we do have a new Mercedes GT3 coming potentially next year. It's currently going through the homologation exercise, Mercedes unveiling it only a week or two ago, so that'll be very interesting, just in time for the arrival of what will be the Lexus stroke Toyota GR GT3 contender, which will most likely be coming next year by the sounds of things. But as we do see Cawte calling on down, indeed everyone seems to be calling on down a little bit in this session, as we do say hello there to Barry Wenman 1992, who gives a shout out to Martin Kenyon and says me, him and Danny Phillips in Masters took the wing in Sebring 12 hours on Saturday for DXT, and that's absolutely brilliant to hear. Well done to you guys. And we also do say hello to Davey Daniels, who is cheering on the DDK racing team there, and I do believe he's the team principal of DDK Racing, so therefore he'll be keeping a stern eye on his drivers, and I hope you're doing well, Davey. And we also do look to Ross Young here out on circuit, as he's currently 33rd fastest. We also say hello there to FTMG52, says, how are Moonshiners Racing Club doing? That's a good question. I do believe you'll find the Moonshiners Racing Club drivers in what will be the Masters split rather than the Superstar split, if my memory serves me correctly. I think they've all gone over there for this season, although I could be wrong. We also say hello to Karen Martino, 4471, who says, let's go MTD and Leon, in reference to Milton Tomlinson Des and Leon Seeley. And as the checker flag comes out on this qualifying session, we are now onto our final laps, and therefore let's lock in a little bit and see who exactly is going to be the quickest out there, as Milton Tomlinson Dennis is currently the fastest of everybody. Raz Harper parks up there for DDK Racing. Ashley Koopman's on his final flying lap with a bit of a toe there for the back of the Ferrari in front of him of none other than what will be the car of Ashley Shucksmith. And well, the club driver right now down in 51st place. The theory would dictate here that right now Koopman is going to catch up to him quite quickly. And if he does so, is that actually going to end up impeding him a little bit? Now, of course, the thing about when you're in qualifying, you're behind another driver, is the fact you gain the slipstream off them. That's great. If you catch them too quickly, and that driver in front of you is on a valid qualifying lap, well, they do not have to get out your way. So therefore, I think right now Koopman's got a bit too close too soon, and this is going to hold him back. Eddie Fearbold, oh, that's going sideways at turn number 12. That's not how you do that left-hander. As Arno Bragg parks up there, and he has decided he's not going any faster. And Thomas Weston here in the 277 Aston Martin right now, I think running the Union Jack colours on that car. Indeed, that looks to be an entire Union Jack on the car. Well, to be fair, British pride on the line there, albeit keep in mind it is a German power plant in that car. It is a Mercedes V8 engine with a twin-turbo power plant system. It is not a 6-litre screamer of a V12 engine, which was, of course, the last engine in the Aston Martin DBR9 GT1 offering, and subsequently the V12 Vantage GT3 offering before it was retired from racing in 2014, replaced by the V8 Vantage, which then had a bit of a disappearing act, and we have the V8 Vantage Evo back as a 2023. But as he calls them down, no improvement for him. Nobody seems to improve too much, although actually, in fact, I say that, Thomas Weston did improve. I do apologise there, a 37.425, but does not move up the pecking order. He stays 33rd, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is qualifying complete. So with drivers parking up in the pit lane, it is Milton Tomlinson Dennis who takes the first in points paying positions, pole position of the season overall and in the pro class. Starting 11th will be your interpole sitter Jared Love, who really dominates the qualifying, much like Tomlinson Dennis did in pro, and in the end Love taking pole position in his category by what's almost a 10th that of Luke Van Gertel. And then we do see what will be in the club category. It is going to be Steve Hughes who's taken pole position in the 107, and what brilliant pole lap from him, taking 29th overall. And the next ice will be Adam Lynch starting in 37th place. So Lynch parts up in the pit lane there, and we look forward to seeing him and all of them out on circuit. But of course, as our drivers all get themselves set and ready to go, well, as things do cool down here in qualifying, we do have a 5-minute warm-up session to come, ladies and gentlemen, which gives our drivers an opportunity to take a bit of a breather and also make sure they've got the right setup on the car. Also, it gives you guys and girls an opportunity to take a little bit of a breather, go to the bathroom if you need to do so, and of course, if you need to top up a liquid refreshment or you need to go for yourself a top up of snacks, go do it. You've got 5 minutes to do it, and then we are going to be heading to the grid and seeing how they all line up for a one and only race today, and you won't want to step away when we do go green flag racing. But we're going to stay here, don't you worry. We're going to keep an eye on our drivers, including the Inter-Racing team driver of Ben Woodgate, the 3-2-4 driver, as he makes way out at the pit lane, and it's good to see so many fresh faces making their way to the grid for this season in the Superstars category. And that's the wonderful thing as well about Superstars, and the fact it really is a nice doorway into the SimRacing International series, whereby this is going to feel very similar to what you will see in most GT3 series you're racing, where it's the iRacing officials or others, and we're really using some means for anyone who's new to the grid and wants somewhere where they can really lay down their marker. That's what the Superstars is all about. And if you do feel as though after a season or two you really want to step up your game and really go for strict rules, no fast repairs, etc., that's when you want to go over to the Masters. So that's where you do have plenty of very familiar faces in Masters, and meanwhile in Superstars here you have a lot of fresh faces, but you can be assured that if we do maintain the format for the seasons to come, you will see plenty of these drivers gradually bleed their way into the Masters series, and it will only get even more exciting. Remember, a trophy in Masters, a trophy in Superstars, they're all worth the same. There is no pride, there is no prejudice against either one, and indeed these series right now will be absolutely fantastic to see as this practice warm-up session continues to tick away. But Ben Woodgate making his way around for Inter-Racing team in the 3-2-4. And as we do see there, Daniel Newman racing insane. Justin looking great out there tonight. Go on, my lad. And also saying great effort from Daniel Page too. Indeed, they were looking impressive. And we look forward to seeing what exactly they can impress upon us when it comes to racing. Now, in terms of how important qualifying is, that's something we haven't really talked about. We've been talking a lot about the drivers who look quickest, Sebring, etc. We're trying to introduce them all. Of course, when you have 60 drivers on the grid, and I do believe about 50 of them brand new to the grid for this season, it's hard to make sure everyone's covered. So if any of them do watch this back afterwards and you go, well, what about me? Why didn't I get an introduction? I do apologise. Well in advance, we'll do our best to make sure you get a little bit of screen time at some point, including the Flying Dane of Simstrap by Glass Tech Racing's Alfred Kirstein, as he makes his way on through there, the youngster, and well, in that Mercedes AMG, and flying the colours of Denmark in the car intriguing me. I love that. I love the fact we've got several cars out there that are flying the flags of their drivers, and well, that is absolute national pride on the line, and well, it puts a big grin on my face there, and well, the fact to see the Danish flag on that car. And if I do give myself a brief aside, of course, the fact that I've recently come away from covering the 2026 Danish F4 Esports Championship and seen some of Denmark's finest race Formula 4s, to see Denmark being represented here, it really gives me a big smile. But enough about me. Qualifying and strategy. What's the important part of qualifying in terms of track position? Well, it's not going to be as important perhaps as at other circuits, because the Hockenheimring does offer plenty of overtaking opportunities. You do have, of course, the run in towards turn number 2. You have the run down towards the Spitzkar hairpin at turn number 6. You also have the run into Mercedes Arena at turn number 8, and also the very last couple of corners, particularly the run through turn number 12 and in towards 15 and 16. So you can overtake here, but it does cost a bit of time to be able to do so, and you do need a bit of a pace advantage in these GT3s, whereby you need to find about a tenth or two over the lap to get close and get into the toe, and then have the confidence to be able to battle on the brakes. So therefore, do expect that qualifying well is going to make a difference in terms of who you battle with. It may not make a difference, however, in terms of where you may end up finishing, and that is the important part. As we do see Justin Hembery making his way on through it, and a good bit of strategy around here when you do have almost 60 cars in attendance at a 2.84 mile circuit. When you do the mathematics, that's not many miles per car there, and that does mean you're going to need to really time that pit stop well if you want to go for an undercut versus the overcut strategy. But as they all head on through, we do see Lihas there saying, can we get a perspective of Bradley Setters? And, well, the answer to that question is yes, we can. In fact, let's jump on board with him as he makes his way on around. Lihas, as we do see here, the Relentless Racing driver making his way on around. Wonderful profile picture that, looking good, and indeed I think all set and ready to go. And I do believe, and I'm sure somebody's going to correct me if I've got this wrong, he hails from Australia. I always get the Australian and the New Zealand flags mixed up there, because it is the extra star at the bottom that always confuses me. Of course, both having the Union Jack in the top left corner in reference to the fact they were once British colonies, but they have separated from the British Empire over time, and that's why you'll find most of the Australian state flags do have some reference to the United Kingdom somewhere in them. It's not just the Union Jack, it's also in terms of the coats of arms that are referenced there, perhaps none more so than New South Wales, of course the home to the Central Table and Circuit of Bathurst. But that's another side of the world, as Bradley Setters right now on this side of the world will definitely not have him the best of qualifying points. He's starting towards the back end of the top 30, but qualifying is one part of the day. 60 minutes of racing, it could all change. And of course, everyone will be a little bit cautious about the fact we could have a big instance at the start of the race. Not saying one will come, but it's always a risk when it's the first race of the season. Indeed, in any race it can happen, but it's always a bit of a higher risk when everyone's got to get used to each other. How does everyone drive? How does everyone go baton? How does everyone start the race? All that and more, ladies and gentlemen. All those questions and plenty more we are about to find out, because let's make our way to the scenic view, because in about 10 seconds time all drivers will be required to head to the pits, and it's time to make our way to the grid for our first round of the season in the Thursday GT3 Championship, brought to you by SimRacing International. It's season 12 and you're catching the Superstar Split here on iRacing. And so, as all the drivers make the ones to the grid, this is the lineup for our first race of the season. It is going to be pole position there for Milton Tomlinson Dennis for Samantha Tan Racing. Join him on the front row of the grid will be Justin Hembery for Daniel Newman Racing Red. Then we will see on row number 2, it'll be Nils Bacage, the privateer, ahead of DDK with race stat bot Elliot Cawte. Then on row 3, Leon Seeley for Samantha Tan Racing, ahead of DCW Racing Blues, Andy Jones. Then we have behind the Welshman, the Englishman of Raz Harper for DDK with race stat bot, ahead of Daniel Page, who starts in A for Daniel Newman Racing Red. Brandon Dyer starts the day in 9th there for Altitude Frame Esports. He's got some way to go to repeat his victory from Sebring, but he'll be in the company of Ashley Coutland for Relentless Racing, completing that top 10. Outside the top 10, in 11th place, it is going to be Interpol sitter of Jared Love for DDK with race stat bot, ahead of Richard Simnor. The DCW Racing Blue Drive will be followed up by Schubert Cardozo for Inter-Racing Team and Luke Van Gertel for MJK Sim Racing. Then we have Corey Price starting 15th there for Darkwind Racing, ahead of Charlie Walker. The Relentless Racing Drive being followed up by Nicholas Carlson for Beowulf Racing Team and Joris Peeters Weem, the privateer. Complete to your top 20, it's going to be Carl Rowe for Access Sim Sports with SimWorld, and then we do have Chris Cole starting in 20th place. Outside the top 20, it is going to be none other than what will be your newcomer today of Alfred Kirstein, ahead of Ben Woodgate, and then we will have Villa Katonen and Leighton Austin completing your 12th row. On row 13, it's Martin Kenyon and Bradley Setters ahead of Benjamin Massey and Brad Pickett, with then Steve Hughes taking the club pole position, a brilliant pole position from the three-wheeler racing, a UK sim racing driver, and he'll be joined on that 15th row by none other than what will be Adam Smith. Outside the top 30, we have 31st Mikhail Abasek ahead of Justin Noel, and then we do have Thomas Weston starting 33rd ahead of Ross Young. Then it's going to be none other than Stephen Kershaw starting 35th ahead of Sam Hockley, with Adam Lynch starting in 37th ahead of Adrian Howard, and then we will see the combination there of Christopher Petty and Denny Ploger completing the top 40. Outside the top 40, we are going to have the machinery of Butler there. That is going to be none other than your starter of, I do believe, Jordan Butler ahead of Arnold Pragt, and then we do have, I believe, Philip Harris ahead of James Fraser, with Eddie Fearbold and Jordan Jones completing your 23rd row. Then we have Rob Gregg and none other than Jack Giles on row 24 ahead of Ashley Shucksmith and Martin Brandon. And on the final couple rows of the grid, it's going to be Max Dean and Dwayne Hoffman ahead of Ollie Smith and Sean Clark. And then completing that final row of the field, it's going to be Nathan Healy and Frank Buyerson that complete your starting order. But ladies and gentlemen, we've had to quickly whistle stop talk through that, because our drivers are making the way through the last couple of quarters, and it's over to Milton Tomlinson Dennis to take us away for our first race of the season with 60 minutes of racing at the Hockenheimring. And just like that, it's lights out and away we go. And he charges way down towards turn 1. Superstar Season 12 is green. And as they come in towards the opening corner, it's a good start there from him. But as they all make the way through, we've got a bit of a glitch in our time tower, but don't worry about that. That will be fixed in due course as all the drivers make the way down towards the next braking zone. And look at this, that is going to be a move potentially coming up through there for Nils Bacage looking up the inside. He gets it done for NJB Performance. The privateer very quick on the brakes. And further back there, we do see plenty of our pro drivers go side by side, weaving and winding their way through. One car goes round. Who exactly is that? Several cars being scored off their own. See Richard Simnor going wide, Chris Cole as well. Oh, goodness me, it's all gone wrong further on back. But it does seem as though most of the cars now are making their way back on gradually, albeit a bit of an aggressive rejoin there for one of our Porsches. Chris Cole, meanwhile, drops all the way down the order like a stone. So we're going to get a replay of that when we can. But it's got a bit wrong coming out of Parabolica curve. But now in towards Spitscare hairpin here, we see 2, 3 wide as everyone gets very close. But onto the brakes here. Well, this is going to be the biggest track effect jam, one of the most expensive ones in the world. As they come out that right hander, where everyone does a very good job there of avoiding any further contact. Although we do see a couple of drivers going wide there, including none other than Christopher Petty's car. Although I think that's all in the name of safety. He's decided to go a little bit wide. But as we do, oh, that's very sideways there, and that's going to be a Porsche going loose. That is going to be the Porsche there. Well, Martin Kenyon getting caught up in that one as well. In fact, no, Martin Kenyon's a bit further back, my apologies. But we do see a Porsche going wide, and also Mercedes, their Relentless Racing car, going distant. I think that was Leighton Austin there taking the rallycross line, but they all keep it together. But meanwhile, after what is almost one lap of racing, well, here is your race leader at the moment. And as he comes charging towards the end of lap 1, still more plenty to go. It is going to be here, Milton Tomlinson Dennis, right now, holding that lead and trying to break away. Don't fret, it says he's 15th, but he's your leader, ladies and gentlemen. Trust me on that. So Milton Tomlinson there's leads ahead of Nils Bacage, followed by Justin Hembery. That's your top three. They're all pros, followed by the pros of Leon Seeley, Elliot, Cawte and Raz Harper. Then we do have Daniel Page, Andy Jones and Brandon Dyer completing your top 9, all pro drive still. And it is going to be Jared Love, who is currently in 10th place overall, and he is your inter-leader at this time. And right now he's still got the free pros of Charlie Walker, Schubert Cardoza and Joris Peeters Weem between himself and Kyle Roy, the Scotsman, who was absolutely incredible in the UK SimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship Season 17, taking what was the honours in the middle class category there, and that would be your equivalent now interclass. He's interclass here, and he's looking to try and continue that theme for Axis Sim Sports with Simwork. But as he makes his way down towards turn number 6, he's got more time to spend on the brakes this time, with Nicholas Carlson and Brad Pickett keeping him close. You'll see there Brad Pickett a bit further back, in fact, and therefore that is a bit of a split in the field. A bit further back, Bradley Setters there. He's had a good start to this race, Setters. He's moved all the way up the order, and in fact now really chomping on the top 5 of the inter drivers, and the pro driver here's got a bit more work to do, but he's definitely having a good run of it. Steve Hughes, meanwhile, he's had a really happy start to this race. The three-wheeler race from a UK SimRacing driver, or 3WKSR as it's also known, when he's currently leader of the club cars, and the nearest club driver to him is Adam Lynch all the way down here. And well, in terms of positions, that's towards the back end of the top 30, and he will wait for the time tower to update itself, ladies and gentlemen. It still does erroneously show the fact that we do have several inter drivers and club drivers ahead. Oh, that's gone very sideways there, and well, that's cost the error. That's Corey Price going around. Don't roll backwards. Oh, goodness me, gets the brake on the nick of time, and well, I think they had to let the car calm down before he could get the brakes, otherwise it would have curved its way back. So therefore the Darkwing Racing driver just about stopping the car in time, and in the end all the Dutchman there definitely making sure things did not go Dutch as he makes his way in towards turn number 11. But my good lord, and the 398 driver gets it back up to speed, and well, he'll be breathing the biggest sigh of relief. Everyone's going to be breathing a sigh of relief for that one as the car rolled it backwards, but he got it stopped in time. Remember to his brakes, wasn't well done to him for doing that. It's not easy, but look at this is free wide as they come down towards turn number 2. That's Nicholas Carlson on the inside of Kyle Roy and Joris Peeters Weem. He goes for a 2-for-1 special, and he gets it there from the supermarket in Germany. That's a brilliant move there from Nicholas Carlson, and well, to be fair, he's the definition of bravery, if anything else, as he makes his way onwards. Kyle Roy and Joris Peeters Weem following him, and well, just in front is Schubert Cardoza as our time tower does update itself, and well, now that it's fixed itself, absolutely brilliant to see, and now we keep track of exactly where everybody is. We do apologise for that as Kyle Roy comes back, it's contact, and in the end that's going to prang the front end of Kyle Roy's car. I think he wanted to come out last possible moment, but in the end just jinked a little bit too late. He should have zigged when he zagged, as an American personality would say. And right now, as they make the way towards turn number 7, it's going to be Carlson giving up the spot. Kyle Roy has got some front bumper damage. They seem to have gotten away with it, but now Carlson has to go defensive as to Peeters Weem, who's going to go around the outside. You could see what Roy was trying to do. There was no malice meant there, but unfortunately, he just timed it too late. He was about, I'd say, half a second away from when he should have done it. He should have done it half a second earlier, and he would have got that absolutely clean, and we would have saying it would have been an absolute Titanic move to come back. But unfortunately, it's not worked out that way, but drivers can make mistakes, even very experienced ones. So therefore, that's gone a bit wrong, but they've been able to survive it for now. And a bit further back, we do see Ross Young here. Oh, hold up a second, that's Mikhail Avasek in the Mercedes, getting it loose out of turn number 11. Mobile 1 curve claims another victim. He's going to drop all the way down the order here. He goes to rejoin, but where exactly does he rejoin? I hear you ask, and he's going to come in alongside Eddie Fearbold there, so he drops all the way down to 34th place. That is not the way you want it to go whatsoever, as we do show you the class positions here as these drivers make the way on through. So many drivers in each of the classes. Our club being sent off the board there. We'll get that fixed very shortly with regards to that. Indeed, that's not what we want to see them all disappear off to, ladies and gents, but trust me what I say. Indeed, this being the season open broadcast, things will go slightly astray, and as they come in towards turn number 1, Mikhail Avasek right now in 12th place, the interclass there. Right now still has got a bit more work to do perhaps in order to move forward, as that's going to be a move from Richard Simnor. That's going to be to take an overall position off of James Fraser, and the DCW Racing blue driver there on the recovery drive, and putting one over Fraser. And Fraser right now, well, he's got the bum of Eddie Fearbold right behind him as we do look back from the rear of his Porsche 992. In fact, the Moonshiners Racing Club drivers are here. I do apologise for the misinformation I provided earlier on. And once they make their way down towards the hairpin, Fraser going a bit defensive here. I've had the pleasure of meeting Fraser in person. I'll tell you one thing, he's one of the loveliest gentlemen you'll meet off the circuit. And on the circuit, he can be a little bit elbows out, but to be fair, he knows what's right and what's wrong. And Eddie Fearbold also knows how you go around the outside there to get it right. Lovely move from Fearbold. Fraser tried to outbrake him. The Mercedes driver was beaten on the brakes. What he also said to him is, look, I'll just go around the outside then, as they make their way up towards turn number 8. So change for full place there in the club class, but now Fraser will try and come back with him as quickly as he can. And Mikhail Avasek giving him some close company. Heading onwards, well, we do have the question of what exactly happened at the race start and all the pandemonium that played out. We will get a replay of that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, to start to explain, but definitely a bit of a nightmare moment for so many drivers. But we're going to stay in the present right now, enjoy all the brilliant battling action, as we do see another quartet of cars there making their way up past their static camera. Cawte right now racing after Dwayne Hoffman, and Hoffman's up to 13th in the club class, although Cawte, an Inter driver here, is going to try and get in the way overall. At least for now they stay exactly as they were. But this is all happening further down the order. Well, what's happening at the very front? At the front, here's Milton Tomlinson, Dennis Still ahead of Nils Bacage and Justin Hembery. As they come down towards the Splitscare hairpin now for the 5th time of asking, well, nothing has really changed here. The Samantha Town Racing driver holding the gap, setting the fastest laps at the moment by the best part of 2 attempts. Bacage behind, well, the NJP Performance driver, and I've had the pleasure of seeing them race in several series, indeed NJP Performance as a team race in several series, and then too, these guys are some of the quickest out there when it comes to the 60-minute racing. I do believe they raced in the UK SimRacing GT3 Championship about 2 years ago, and they were some of the pace setters out there, and right now Justin Hembery is trying to be a pace setter of his own just behind. So Daniel Newman, a racing red driver, staying close to DNR Motorsports, its way up towards the next braking zone with the camera here showing into turn 11 just the speed and ferocity they come past, as we did see Leon Seeley and Elliot Cawte giving chase 1.5 seconds back. We did briefly lose them there. We see Daniel Page, he's the other Daniel Newman, a racing red car inside the top 10 at the moment, and it's not just a top 10 overall, it's top 10 a pro. Right now the 319 driver here staying close, but they're all equaling each other. And Andy Jones, the DCW racing car that did not get caught up in the absolute chaos of turn 2 through to 4. Oh, that's going to be going wrong. That's Raz Harper going loose there, coming through Sud Curve. And well, the Lamborghini, the 312, drops down the order. He gets himself recovered there. I wonder if he's just clipped the sausage curb coming out turn 15. That's upset the car. Whether he's hit the curb on the apex a little bit too high, because that looks as though a mistake there, where the car's essentially lifted and suddenly the rear left tyre just over-compressed on the suspension. Well, we'll have to find out when we get a replay. But right now, Raz Harper definitely trying to pick up the pieces as quickly as he can, and that's going to be a bit of a moment whereby, well, it's an easy mistake to make, even with the very best out there. But make no mistake, we're not going to miss this, because this is Leon Seeley under a bit of pressure, as here comes Elliot Cawte. Now, Elliot has definitely caught up to him, but will he be able to make a pass on Seeley? Seeley going defensive there, and he says there's no way in for you. And right now, Cawte's going to say, right, if you won't give me the inside, I'll do it on the outside. To which Seeley says, try this other side, gets his elbows out there, and outbreaks that Mercedes. Now, we know this Corvette is a real dark horse of a car in the fact that, on paper at least, many liken it to just an American Ferrari 296. The aerodynamic model is very similar between the two cars. Corvette have intentionally made this car as easy to access for drivers as possible, particularly with its electronics. But the thing about this car is it's one of those whereby it has a lot of understeer in the car until it doesn't. It suddenly goes from understeer to oversteer very quickly, and that makes it a very powerful car on corner exit if you can tame it. The only downside to the car is, whilst it is good on corner exit plus also under braking, it doesn't quite have straight line speed, something the Mercedes has in ample supply by comparison. So that's why CD right now is looking so good through the corners, but as soon as we get to a long stretch of tarmac, that's why the Mercedes is really breathing down his neck. But still, it's a long way to go. Speaking of long ways to go, as we look back down the order here into the club category, with Steve Hughes absolutely bolting away at the front of it. Well, it's currently Jordan Butler who's leading the charge for second further through. Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, of course, having a much happier day in the office here. It all went wrong for the team at Sebring, whereby 2 of their 3 cars were eliminated before they even cleared the opening corner. Dwayne Hoffman, of course, was the one who was able to survive it all and bring home that 3rd place. Jordan Butler, meanwhile, who looks set for a potential chance at the win in the pre-season event, well, before he even cleared turn 1 at Gender being bent, he found himself being bent into a barrier. So it was a very sad day for the British driver, but right now, at least, as he has Adam Lynch trying to chase him, Butler's looking a lot happier, and they still have Eddie Fearbold for close company and the privateer on the charge. But heading on through, as we do see a few fans there for the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport team, or FTVM as it's abbreviated to. Well, Richard Simnor up the inside with another driver. That's overall position 27th now off of Stephen Kershaw. So therefore Simnor still moving forward in this race, but no, there's a lot of work to do. Back to Corey Price, he's side by side here with Philip Harris going up the inside. Harris was the car that came loose earlier on, and the Darkwing Racing driver, of course, had that huge moment coming out of turn number 10, almost going back into the pack, but thankfully he did not. Price able to get those brakes onto the Darkwing Racing car, and right now he's trying to chase his way back up the order, but he's got a lot of work that needs doing. Hold up, that's Justin Noel parked up there at the hairpin. That's not where you want to park the car normally. I could imagine the Americans had a bit of a moment, perhaps had a scuffle with somebody, but either way, it's definitely not worked out for him, and James Fraser's going to be on the inside of him. Now Noel will try to pass the club driver. He'll do so. Fraser, I think, lifted off the throttle there to make sure that battle did not go into the Mercedes arena, because Fraser's got to worry about the fact he's got Arno Prague behind him as the Moonshiners Racing Club driver makes his way through the left into right. But as the 139 driver comes onto a short stretch, he gets a bit of a breather here, currently running 5th in the club class and started 8th, so therefore he's had a good start to this race. Can't by comparison, started 6th, still is 6th, there he is right behind. So these two, not too much change between them in terms of their respective pace, but definitely Fraser's the man who's on a bit of a march. As further behind, Nicholas Carlson, after his heroics earlier on, where it went a bit wrong with Carl Roy a bit later on, he's now looking up the inside of Ashley Shucksmith. Is this going to work? It's side to side for returns 30 to 14. He's on the inside of this sheet to the outside now, and he's going to have to go all the way around the outside of Sud Curve. That's not easy to do. But to be fair, great racing respect shown between these two drivers, and they're going to have a drag race around and towards Nord Curve. And if you're Shucksmith at this point, you're going to be lifting off before you get to turn 1. Just a simple reason, they're not in the same class, but also the inside of Nord Curve is not a place you want to be, because there is a very high apex curve, the largest of the sausage curves here at the circuit. You hit that, you will break the front suspension of the car if you hit it head on, and that would be the risk there of going up the inside lines. If you see too wide into Nord Curve, either somebody's taken a lot of bravery pills, or they will suddenly be backing out just before they hit the apex. Jack Giles, meanwhile, we know he's one of the fan favourites out there for Euro Titans Endurance in the 157. He's still got Rob Gregg behind him, the other Moonshiners Racing Club car, and Denny Ploger just behind him as well. Ploger having a bit of a difficult start by comparison. Here comes Rob Gregg up the inside, goes all in, goes onto the ABS, goes very deep there, and in the end, Jack Giles says, well, that was impressive, let me go for the switchback. And Gregg loses the place he took as quick as that. But to be fair, I think Gregg wanted to go for it, but just outbroke himself a little bit there, and just needed to be on the brakes around about 5 metres earlier, and he might have been able to get that stopped just in time. Nicholas Carlson, the odd dives up the inside of Denny Ploger. The MJT Sim Racing driver lets that go, so Carlson on a bit of a recovery drive. That's what's happening further down. But back up towards the front of the field we go. There's plenty of drives out there, and I do believe we still do have the vast majority of them racing. We have lost a few drivers. We have lost 2 so far, Max Dean and Ashley Coupland, whereas we've got 54 of our 56 starters still in the race, of which Nils Bacage right now, the German driver, making his way on through with the close company of Justin Hembery. But this is a bit of an awkward one here for these two, because Tomlinson Dennis right now is lapping on average a 10th quicker a lap. Now, if these two fight over second place, that 1/10 a lap that Tomlinson Dennis is gathering is suddenly going to become 3, 4, even 5/10 lap for as long as these two fight. So what do you do at this point? Well, if you are our NJB Performance Privateer, and you ride on board and look back from the rear of the car, all you do is just drive normally. You drive your pace, you drive to your strategy, and hope you're able to close down the man known as MTD at the front of the field. If you're just in Hembery, you've now got to be thinking about what's more important. Is it the track position that's more important, or is it strategy that's more important? So, for Hembury's perspectives, they do come past our static camera. Well, what the big question will be is, does he feel as though that Bacage is holding him back? If he does feel as though he's holding him back, then he needs to make a pass, or he needs to come into the pits and try to go for the undercut. But the risk of hitting is the fact that we do have 50 cars out here, and at the moment at least, and the majority of them are on the lead lap and nobody has really pitted on strategy, you're going to come out somewhere in the pecking order, and therefore you've now got to fight your way past cars. That's going to cost you time. So therefore, what Hembury's got to do at this point, if he doesn't feel as though he can beat the second place man in the battle to a braking zone, he's going to stay behind, and he'll have to go to plan C, which is fuel save, and fuel save as much as possible, lift and coast, and essentially get ready for when you can pounce, but otherwise just save the fuel and give yourself a bit of strategic advantage later on to leap to second at least, but you may lose the chance of the win. So that's all playing out there. But we come to Richard Simnor, who right now has got no room to fuel save, as the Corvette driver picks of Adrian Howard there for 24th overall. Again, these are overall places. He's got a long way to go before he gets to Bradley Setters, who right now, the relentless racing driver, still on the back end of Brad Pickett's car. And Pickett has got Benjamin Massey in front. Benjamin Massey, of course, will be our interclass champion in the modern parlance of Season 1 of the GT3 Championship of SimRacing International. There he is in the Inox Motorsport car. Right now, there's still a lot more work to be done there, although running with the Daniel Newman racing livery machine there, so we do have a little bit of a shift up with regards to liveries of cars. But Massey right now trying to keep Brad Pickett between him and Bradley Setters, and he'll be grateful for having the Clark St James's with DXT driver there. Meanwhile, that's going to be a Porsche driving up the inside. That's a Porsche, I believe, trying to unlap itself. That's Luke Van Goertel, the Inter driver, and in the end goes a little bit too late on the brakes, and Pickett just simply says to him, no, thank you, sir. But right now, Van Goertel, the man who did start, of course, second in the Interclass, he is a lap down, This is a very frustrating place to be. He's trying to unlap himself here. The problem is, well, if he fights with these drivers, the more he fights with them, the more he gets locked into the blue flag situation. And, well, understandably, the man behind him, the Relentless Racing car, will be wanting to argue that right now he's got a lap-down driver essentially proven to be a little bit of a nuisance to him. That's what he would argue. So that's a bit of a worry for Van Goertel. He's got to overtake and unlap himself quickly and break away. Otherwise, there'll be a building case against him in the steward's room afterwards. Not saying that's the way it's going to go, but normally that's how it's treated with regards to lap-down drivers trying to unlap themselves. But Nathan Healy, meanwhile, the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, he's got the company of Leighton Austin behind. Austin looking for an opportunity around the outside as they power their way on past our camera. And, well, Healy just sticking that to his mantra here, as we do see Austin now looking around the outside in the Relentless Racing Mercedes that definitely picked up a lot of damage in the open lap. It had to be pitted at the end of the lap and go for the fast repair. Philip Harris and Jordan Jones queue up behind. They're fighting over 12th place in the club class behind. So they're enjoying a good little battle. And the Darkwing Racing driver here, of course, one of our top finishers in the UK Sim Racing at GT3 Championship season 16, if my memory serves me correctly, where he was competing in the Evo category. Did bring on home a win that season and also finished third in the championship when he was one of the drivers who could potentially take the championship crown. In the end, it went to Edward Berry, and Edward Berry really was the fans' favourite of the season, who overcame a huge amount of adversity from the early parts of the season. But Leighton Austin looking at the inside here versus Nathan Healy. And, well, Healy still fighting with it. They can fight for overall position. There's no extra points up for grabs if you beat a driver another class overall. But, of course, there is bragging rights if you're an Inter driver keeping a pro behind you. And right now, Nathan Healy really, I think, frustrating Leighton Austin a little bit. Although Austin's just got to keep his cool and find a way through when the time is right. He's got to use that experience of a pro. That's what the class designation is there for, and he tries to go around the outside of Healy just past the car there and runs a little bit deep with it. Austin taps on the rear there, a bit of rear bumper comes flying off, and, well, right now these two I definitely think will be seeing a bit of red mist between them. I think Austin at this point is going to try and be a bit forceful here as Healy continuing to defend. In fact, Austin's now going to look up the inside, front bumper goes flying off, and it's contact between the two, and in the end it does end up in tears. And, well, both of those drivers I think are going to have stern words with each other after the race, and I'm sure both of them will be called to the stewards room over that one, because I think both of them there could have perhaps looked back at that one on clearer eyes and thought, could we have done a little bit better with that? But still, we're not going to point fingers at anyone. Instead, what we're going to do is point the camera at Brad Pickett and Martin Kenyon, and also Alfred Kirstein and Thomas Weston, because we've got a good battle building here for third place in the Interclass. And Brad Pickett right now is at the front of this group, as we see his Ferrari here, the Clark St James with the DXT machine. Well, Martin King, Alfred Kirstein and Thomas Weston queuing up. Steve Hughes, the club class leader, is at the back of the group in his Porsche. So he's playing a bit more of a witness there rather than anything else. He wants a bit of a role to play when he can. As they all coming down, we're coming towards the end of the opening 20 minutes of this race. Just before we do get the pit stops, we should point out that Nathan Healy's car has been brought into pits. It has retired after that damage from the contact with Leighton Austin, so therefore Healy's race is in pits now, unfortunately. But we are going to take a look back at some of the big moments from the early stage of this race. And here we go, a trip back in time, ladies and gentlemen, because we don't want to miss all those big moments. So this is what happened to Chris Cole towards the start. Now, we did have the incident happen a bit further up the road, and that is where we did get to see the car there of Richard Simnor being scooped out, but Cole also collecting that one, and in the end, couldn't quite see who triggered the contact on whom there for the DCW Racing yellow car. This is what it looked like from Richard Simnor's exterior perspective as he made his way through. 3 wide, and back in there, Luke Van Goertel on his outside. On the inside, a DDK Racing car. A Relentless Racing car went side, so that's the 363, and that triggered it. So it was the 363 coming loose there out the corner on cold tyres. That was the car of Ashley Coupland. Can we get on board with Coupland's perspective? I think we can. And this was Coupland. So, Relentless Racing car. He got elbowed, and not sure if it was the Daniel Newman car. We're not going to judge on that, but Coupland tried to get the power down. Car turned sideways. It looks like it may have actually been assisted in that endeavour, and at that point, it was pinged and ponged around like a little ball. And, well, unfortunately, Relentless Racing driver not on a happy day at all. But as it all went wrong for him, meanwhile, we did have this for Christopher Petty on what was the open lap. This was the privateer, making his way down towards the hairpin, so everyone came onto the brakes here. This was incredible to see them all 3-4 wide, and Petty then being tapped on the rear, being pushed forward a little bit into the corner. And, well, in fact, that was not Petty, that was Corey Price being tapped by Petty, but I think Christopher Petty realised at the end that they were all concertinaing quite hard, and, well, no malice meant there by those drivers at all, but everyone did make it through the corner absolutely safely. This for Philip Harris, I believe, a bit later. And this was Harris coming across. We just caught the tail end. The start of that, and we caught the tail end of it. He was into the barrier there. Didn't quite see the connection of the dots, unfortunately, the replay footage, and then turned in the contact there with the 172. Oh, and there was a prang there to other Porsches trying to go up the inside. And, well, that all went wrong. That was your 152 Porsche, I believe. Or, well, not quite sure which one that was. Was that Max Dean, in fact? I think it was Max Dean, is 192 now. I adjust my eyesight. So that was Dean being towed to the pits afterwards. We had this for Corey Price. This was the Price coming out of turn number 9 and 10. And as he did so, hit the sausage curb again. He did that in qualifying the onboard. And this, of course, was that big moment where the car came sliding backwards, had the brakes fully on. Finally got it stopped. Arno Proud started to react. Then Jägermeister Porsche, the orange car, he was reacting to go to the inside. He saw what was up. But thankfully, Price was able to get it stopped right in the nick of time. We had this on lap number 7 for Justin Noel, and this is where it went a little bit wrong for the privateers. He came on down in towards the split scare hairpin. What exactly happened here? And the 315 driver onto the brakes and tapped on the rear there by the Ferrari by looks of things, and I think that was the Ferrari. I want to say that was either Brad Pickett or Ross Young. Don't quote me on that. I think that one might have been Brad Pickett's car, but there's a story behind that one, and, well, I might have a case of mistaken identity. We also had this for Sean Clark, or Shawnee Clark as he's known to friends, and as the Clark St James with DXT driver made his way in towards turn number 11, one accidentally went wrong for him as he made his way through, took a little curb, went wide, and the car just been escorted out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way back to your live racing, and as we do, several cars into the pit lane, including Pickett, also Price and Arno Prague, albeit they all look to be damaged cars, to be fair. But still, we are now in the strategic window, and we're not going to go to replay so much longer now, because we don't want to miss what's happening on circuit. Albeit, hold up a second, we've had a bit of an incident. Oh, my good lord, that's a lot of pieces and cars down at what was turn number 6. There's Adrian Howard there, the Daniel Newman Racing red driver. Well, as he came out the corner, something's definitely fallen off the car. The front bumper might be a key there, that's definitely missing. And, well, that's going to be too wide between two cars, Nicholas Carlson and Eddie Fearbold. And I think Carlson here right now has had his time in dealing with Eddie Fearbold. These two going side by side battling for it'll be 28th, and Fearbold still coming back at him. Fearbold does not give in, to be fair to him. He does not take no for an answer. Adam Lynch and John Butler, meanwhile, well, Adam Lynch has got into second place here in the club class. He's just sneaked ahead of John Butler, so a bit of a change there. But we do see sideways game saying Will was broken from the contact, and, well, by the sounds of things, one of the drivers we did catch in the replay there. I appreciate the insights from yourself. As these drivers wind on through, we'll say hello to a few more of you in the YouTube chat next. We've got so many of you there. But indeed, everywhere you look at the moment, there's plenty of action playing out, and Adam Lynch ahead of Jordan Butler for now at least. How exactly did he get that move done? Well, here is the replay to explain. So this will be a quick replay to show their battles. Pit stops are ongoing, and Lynch in the end went up the inside initially in towards turn number 8, and Butler, to be fair, gave him the space there. Lynch came from quite far back. That was more trying to psych out Butler, and it worked for Lynch, so well done to him for doing that. Butler could have just turned in there and put the pressure on Lynch to have to stop the car, but Lynch, if anything, he got Butler to go deep, and as a result set the move up through 9 and 10. Smart driving there from your privateer. But back to live racing we go, and as we do, well, pit stops have happened for some drivers further down the order, but not too many elsewhere. Most drivers still staying out of the man. Understandable, as it's going to be Lynch now with Nicholas Carlson looking up the inside. He's trying to get the inter-driver away from him before Butler gets onto the back of him. Lynch being very intelligent here as Butler and Fearbold queue up behind him, and now Lynch will tuck into the tyre Carlson and say to him essentially, look, I've given you overall position, you now need to do me the biggest of favours and let me pull away from my club class peers. We'll have to see if that's the way it plays out. Meanwhile, Christopher Petty and Jack Giles here, they're a little bit further back, fighting over 33rd or 6th in class. In terms of those class positions there, they are on your screen. But as they come charging on through, well, these two right now still very close together. No real battle behind them, as you do see there Rob Gregg and Ashley Tuck-Smith trying to catch up to them. They've got some work to do. You do see Martin Brandon's Audi here still chasing after Jordan Jones. They're fighting over 13th in the club class with Dwayne Hoffman just in front, and then they do have Ben Woodgate, who is the anomaly there, given the fact he did have to take that pit stop at the end of lap number 1 due to the damage picked up. And therefore Woodgate, the pro driver right now, who definitely doesn't belong down in this group, unfortunately he finds himself down there based on the way the race has gone, not the way his pace is going. But Dwayne Hoffman under pressure, the full tilt virtual motorsport driver, and right now definitely a very strategic driver out there, the Darkwing Racing Aston Martin of Jones looking to poke and probe in towards superb, but that's not going to work as they make their way out of the corner. Lamborghini versus Aston Martin here. That Lamborghini will scream its way out towards Nord Curve. Jones thinks about it. Is he going to go for it? He really does try to force a move on Hoffman there. And well, it gets Hoffman to go a little bit deep, but Jones in the end, as much close as he can get. The problem with that Aston Martin is you've got to be high up in the RPM band, or you've got to send it, and that's what he's going to do. Jones in the end says, right, I'll use the car as a ballistic missile. Has a little bit of a twitch of oversteer there on exit, and he gets it together. Side by side coming out of turn number 4, and Jordan Jones in the end, he is not playing around. And now Dwayne Hoffman, how will he react? As here comes Martin Brandon. Can he get his Audi on the inside of the Audi powered Lamborghini? Can he make it free wide down towards turn number 6? We know this Audi isn't the quickest on the straights, but it's very good in the corners. Onto the brakes he goes. He takes 1, he takes 2. Does he get it stopped? He does, and Martin Brandon up the inside into 11th in the club cars. But will now Jordan Jones come back? And Jones is going to be thinking to himself at this point, how on earth I just lost 2 places? And the answer is because he didn't account for the Brandon effect, which is if Martin Brandon's there, you're going to be rolled back the order because they made it free wide. But Hoffman now looks to move. He can't quite find it in towards turn number 8. So Dwayne Hoffman trying to get right back at Brandon. Brandon goes a little bit deep, has to go defensive into turn number 10. Hoffman turns in on the outside. And here comes Jones once again. They're going to be 2 wide. Does Jordan Jones make it 3 wide into turn 11? Surely he's not going to. Is he going to put himself in the middle? Is he going to part the seas? No, he's not. Brandon right now defending as hard as possible. And the Axis Sportsman SimWorks driver here absolutely gluing himself to this position. Jones tries to go around the outside. Hoffman loses out there. Caught up behind and trying to go on the high line. He's going to squeeze around the outside. And Jordan Jones does take the place. Lovely move there from Jordan Jones. And now looking up the inside into Sud Curve. Well, there's battles everywhere happening. But right now, these club drivers are absolutely the ticket. He's going up the inside. He goes to him. Brandon goes a little bit deep on the outside of Sud Curve. And that's going to be into 11th there in the club cars. Just Jones now get a breakaway. Or is it going to be now the turn for Martin Brandon to come back at him? We'll have to wait and see as they roll through Nord Curve, but I think now Jones may have got this done as Chris Cole, meanwhile, who has pitted on the start of the race, of course, he comes up behind these club drivers right now and says, hold up a second, how do I get past you all? Well, the problem he's got to do here, he's got to try and make sure they don't fight him as much as they're fighting each other. And right now you can understand if Hoffman and Brandon will be saying to him, no, Chris, go away. You're not invited to this party. This is club drivers only. I think Chris Cole right now doesn't care whether he's got an invitation or not. This one, he's going to invite himself up the inside there of Dwayne Hoffman, and I think he's going to break up this battle as he comes down towards the hairpin. And the answer is going to be, can he beat the Lamborghini on the brakes? Yes, he can. In the end, he actually is quite subtle about how he does it and gets it parked up. He says to Hoffman, look, I'm coming up the inside, you are backing off, and he parks it firmly in the middle of the apex. Meanwhile, into the pits, it is going to be Charlie Walker coming in. So he comes in from 12th place in the Pro class, and that does mean now we'll have Bassi and Setters moving ahead, but Walker coming in quite early here. Where is this going to put him? Now, he will be the first driver who has taken a strategic pit stop, or will he? No, he will not. He will be the first in the Pro class to do it, but the highest placed driver who has pitted overall is Adam Lynch currently. He is 12th in the club class, so therefore he's got nothing to lose in free. He was running second, in fact, in the category before he pitted, so arguably he does have a lot to lose there. I'm a bit amazed he pitted, but perhaps he's seen something we haven't, and that is a lot of clear track in front of him, which he is using to his advantage at the moment. So this might be a smart call from Adam Lynch, as we do show you the pit stops that have been served by drivers. Now, do keep in mind you have a few drivers who are listed as having taken a stop, but that is because they had to take repair work at the start of the race. We can't remove that from the timing tower, so therefore you will have a few anomalies here. But Adam Lynch right now is definitely not an anomaly. Where, meanwhile, is Charlie Walker? Here he is. He's come out in 25th place, the 308 driver, but he's got clear track in front of him. So there's something to be said here about the undercut strategy. There is space on circuit for those who are daring to risk it. As that was a bit of a run wide there from James Fraser, a bit too eager on the throttle pedal coming out of the corner, but we all do it. And the Moonshiners Racing Club driver gets himself back on there. No real time lost, but an instant point definitely lost, or you could say gained to his name. But whilst all that's happening, we've been seeing so much going on further down. Many of you are wondering what's going on at the front of the field. Well, we do see Milton Tomlinson Dennis right now still leading by 1.5 seconds, but now the gaps are getting more pronounced here between your top 10 drivers overall and in Pro. And the reason for that is not just pace between drivers, but because we are starting to see them come against lap down cars, of which Milton Tomlinson Dennis does have the unfortunate accolade of being the very first to act as a battering ram through the ball. And then Nils Bacage is currently in second there. He has put the full tilt virtual motorsport car of John Butler between himself and none other than Justin Hembery. But as you can see that Hembery has also got Eddie Fearbold right behind him, and Fearbold right now I think is going to be minding his manners and making sure that he does not make contact with the Mercedes in front. Not to say he will, to be fair, but indeed right now he'll be thinking to himself, you know what, just be patient, Hembery will bring Butler back to you, and that's the thing. The way lap traffic goes, as Fearbold goes very wide there, knocking the exit curb high. A few tries doing that there, although it does seem as though the Mercedes of Elliot caught just about going over the top of the curb rather than riding on it, so therefore does not decide to turn his car into a metaphorical skateboard. And Justin Hembery in the end gets his headlights on quite late in the day there for John Butler and says, look, I'm coming through, be ready. And as quickly as Butler could start to look to his left, he suddenly found there's a Mercedes already there. So Justin Hembery wasting no time. That man has got no time to waste. A bit further back, Brandon Dyer, he is in the middle of the sandwich of Daniel Page and Andy Jones. These three fighting over 6th place in the Pro category and overall at the moment. And Dyer, the GT3 eSports driver. Well, I don't know if that helmet he's got in his profile picture is a legal helmet he can go racing with, although it does have a visor to be fair, although I don't think it meets quite the safety standards that are brought by the FIA regulations. But either way, right now, I think a very avid BMXer, if I'm not mistaken, and right now can he use some of his experience in that to find a way past Daniel Page? Well, he won't be doing it off the road, that's for certain. Jones right now will be looking to poke and probe as we ride aboard the front bumper of his car. Now, Bradley Setters has been involved in a bit of an incident quite recently. We're not quite sure what's happened to him. We will get a replay shortly because he's had a meatball flag given to him, so there's been some contact with a barrier or another car. Martin Kenyon's into the pit lane meanwhile, so I wonder if Martin Kenyon's been involved in that, as that's going to be at the inside of Page. Oh, and it's going to be very late on the brakes there for Andy Jones. My good lord, almost wiping the camera off the car. I thought there he was going to get that completely wrong. And, well, I had to really flinch there in the contact with, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you guys and girls did that at home, but in the end, Brandon Dyer did find his way at the inside of Page for all of that. But Brandon Dyer in the process, well, almost seeing an absolutely huge amount there. And I think Jones came in expecting to carry a lot more speed through the corner. I think he tried to go as late as possible to get involved and somehow did not make contact with the back of the Daniel Newman racing at Mercedes. Well, that's going to be one for the books there. But Brandon Dyer make his way out to 6th place. He'll be very pleased with that. A bit further back, Joris Peeters Weem chasing after Kyle Roy. Kyle Roy being the 2nd place Inter driver right now. Peeters Weem being at the 10th place pro. These two in different classes, but both looking to try and nip on the heels of the top 10 when they can. But as things do just cool down at the moment for a little bit of time, we are going to take a quick look back at what exactly happened to Bradley Setters only moments ago and Martin Kenyon with him. So this was Bradley Setters' Relentless Racing coming out to turn 11. In towards 12 he went, and as he did so, a rear of the car started to come loose. You could see the brakes went on twice there through the corner. That was a sign the rear was going loose. Oh no, that's not the way you went to do it at all. As he went to try and get the car turned around, the yellow flags were most likely only waving just as Martin Kenyon went into the corner, and this is what it looked like from Martin's perspective. So as he made his way on through, the Clark St. James and DXT drivers see green flag at the post on the right. He'll then, as he makes his way on through, he'll come through the corner, he'll suddenly get the call there's a yellow flag, and unfortunately the Ford Mustang there, he's trying to stay low, hoping the Relentless Racing car would stay in the middle of the road, it'd hold its brakes, but of course the Relentless Racing driver there of Bradley Setters wanted to get the car off the road as quickly as possible, and that's why both of them have had to come into the pits. But Setters picking up more damage to the front axle there compared to Martin Kenyon, and that's why he picked up the meatball flag by comparison. We also did have this only months later for Mikhail Abasek, and the Inox Motorsport driver weaving his way through turns 13 and 14 as he came into Seward Curve. Oh, there was a further instant there. And oh, goodness me, into the back of Setters. Well, just Noel being caught up in that as well. What on earth has happened there? Well, we're only seeing the tail end of it, so I'm not quite sure. Can we get a quick look back at what happened before? This was just Noel coming through, so I think Setters at the time was trying to struggle around. He was trying to get... I see what's happened. Oh, no, that's a disaster there. You've got to feel for Bradley. He was trying to get the car into the pits, and in the end, I don't think anybody's realised that he's been pinged, he's been ponged, he's been knocked around there, and well, that's going to be a tow to the pit lane immediately. He just waited to get to the pits. It was literally 500 metres away, and unfortunately nobody realised he was trying to do that. He was struggling with the car to get there. So I do feel for the Relentless Racing driver, and that's going to be a very hard one for the stewards to call out, because who do you say is at fault there? Is it the car that's damaged trying to get to the pit lane, or is it the cars trying to find their way through? And in the end, well, I think everyone's just misunderstood that one a little bit there, and I definitely would not want to be in that stewarding room. But thankfully we're back to some live racing, and as we are, Adam Lynch and Sam Hockley side by side to each other here. This is 32nd place, and as they come down we can see a bit further behind, Jordan Butler has got Eddie Fearbold for close company. But right now, as Lynch falls behind Hockley, here is Butler and Fearbold together. They're fighting over 10th place, but keep in mind that these two drivers have pitted, and therefore with their pit stops out the way, we believe theoretically they are chasing 6th place in the club class. It may be for 5th in fact, and Denny Ploger is 4 seconds behind, hand pitted as well. So the pit stops now are really coming through for what is anybody outside the top 20, although we have had a couple of drivers risk an early pit stop in the pro category inside the top 20, including most recently Raz Harper, who's got Steve Hughes behind. Now Hughes understandably has yet to pit, and the club leader will probably just tuck onto the back of the 312 Lamborghini at this point. He will not want to play a role in this one. It would be ill-advised. He's going to be battling with a driver who's in a completely different race, and therefore they're not compatible with each other. But as we do see them keeping things clean, well, meanwhile, up the road, we go from one DDK racing car that seems to be safe and happy to one that's got a bit of pressure, because Brandon Dyer is all over the back of Elliot. He's caught up to him very quickly, and he goes to go into the pit lane. He goes at last possible moment there, and I get the feeling that might have been a very late call from the pit wall for DDK with RaceStatBot.com. And in the end, well, I think Brandon Dyer did tap him on the rear and almost sent Cawte round. Now, that is going to be one of those moments where I think both drivers afterwards are going to take a very deep breath there, because that could have gone very wrong. Cawte's in, Andy Jones as well. And now, as we do see Daniel Page just catching up behind, well, Page will keep an eye on that one and think to himself, did they just touch each other? If so, I might be in with a chance. But this is free wide coming down towards turn number 2. That's going to be Joris Peeters Weem on the inside of Carl Roy. Meanwhile, the car on the outside is the lap down car of Martin Kenyon after its repair work from the contact of Bradley Setters. And right now, Joris Peeters Weem in the end does clear both of them. My goodness, Carl Roy in the end being passed. And that was definitely a bit of a moment there as they make the way on through. As they come down, we do say hello to a few more of you, including Jill's GPH, and also I do believe there we also say hello to James Knight once again. Good to see you guys there, all giving your thoughts on all the batting that's going on, no doubt about it. We've still got more racing to come, ladies and gentlemen. We've still got 23 minutes this race remaining, and right now, whilst it has been very settled towards the front of the field, it must be said, further down the field, that's where the excitement has been found. I think we're overdue some excitement inside that top 5 overall in Pro. I think it's strategy that right now is going to dictate who exactly is where when they complete that pit stop. Remember, we are running 75% fuel tanks, and therefore we do have a much wider pit window than we've previously seen, whereby the pit window has normally been from about 18 to 20 minutes into the race to around about 40 to 45 minutes into the race. Now I suspect we could push the fuel tank as far as from 15 minutes to around 45 to 50 minutes, depending on the circuit and the amount of fuel saving that's being done. So it really does create a huge pit window. Meanwhile, we come to Brad Pickett up the inside there of Stephen Kershaw. And that is going to be for class position. That's for 12th place in the interclass. Roll the way out. We look to your class positions. You can see right now all these drivers have pitted at this point, so they're all fighting. The only one who's the outlier here is this man in the yellow and black machine for MJK SimRacing, Luke van Goertel. And the Dutchman, unfortunately, victim, of course, the open lap incident through turns 2 into 3. And right now, he will have to pit at some point after getting the car repaired and putting a little bit of fuel in. We won't be able to take the fuel to get to the end of the race with that open lap pit stop. You can't get the pit stop done that early. And right now, it's really all about damage limitation at this point. But coming on down towards turn number 2, we have had a few more retirements in this race. We now do have 48 runners remaining, with Bradley Setter's car in the pit lane at the moment, still being looked at. He may come back out and he will return to being a 49th runner, but as we have lost Mikhail Abasek, as we have lost Corey Price, Richard Simnor, Nathan Healy, Frank Williamson, Max Dean and Ashley Hoopland. It's unfortunate there that we have lost a few drivers along the way, but it has happened. Meanwhile, side by side here, this is for the lead of club. That is going to be Christopher Petty up the inside of James Fraser. And Steve Hughes has come into the pits from the lead of the category. So therefore, Hughes was quite comfortably ahead. So you'd imagine he will return as strategic leader at some point. But these two right now on track, at least fighting for what is likely to be some spots in the top 5, if not on the podium. So Christopher Petty has really come up. James Fraser's come a long way. And Jack Giles as well. All 3 of these drivers have really made some great progress. But see, Jack Giles, he started in 12th in the club class, and now he's running in 3rd. Of course, pit stops will adjust things, and we have had some huge changes in terms of positions from several drivers. But it does seem as though here, several club drivers did not qualify that well, but they found the pace when they needed it in the race. As we do see our runner Porsches there making their way onwards, and Ben Woodgate up the inside of Rob Gregg. That's going to be for overall position for 20th. Woodgate, of course, while the victims of the open up incident. And therefore he does have a pit stop still to go. And Rob Gregg has yet to pit as well. So both of them going as long as humanly possible. And Seth is still in the pit lane, I can inform you. As Benjamin Massey's now come into the pit from what was at the time 6th place overall. So he's released the place to Shubert Cardozo. Oh, sorry, 6th place in the pro class. Let me correct myself there. That was 7th overall. And well, Massey decided to come in. Coming in a little bit earlier than most in the pro classes to inside that top 10. But he's seen a strategic window. He's going to try and capitalise on it. And there's Ross Young and Raz Harper together, and Harper there carrying so much speed coming out of the corner. Well, in the end, using the track limits and plenty more. That's value-added tarmac if I've ever seen it. Looks around the outside of Young. That's not going to work. As we look to the overall standings, they are fighting at the moment over 10th place, and Harper picking up that yellow flag. He's going to have to give that time back, and well, he'll try to do it by the time he gets towards the split scare hairpin. He'll try and lift and coast into that braking zone. I suspect he's got about a 1 to 1.5 second penalty there he's got to burn. That is going to hurt. That is not going to be an easy amount of time to get rid of, but Young's got a bit of a problem because he's got Jared Love behind him there, and keep in mind that Jared Love has pitted. Kyle Roy has not, nor has Ross Young. So Jared Love is your theoretical hold-up. Who's that who's gone around there? Is that Dwayne Hoffman who's gone round? I think it is. He reverses the car off the road in the nick of time. The Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport driver has had a spin at the hairpin. Now, whether that's of his own volition or whether he's been aided, we don't know. What we do know is that's not the way he's wanted it to go whatsoever. And the driver who had his home circuit last time out, of course, in the pre-season, picked up that brilliant podium. Well, things stand very far from the podium right now, but this is just round number 1, to be fair. We do have several drivers who are impressed at Sebring, who today definitely are not going to be impressed with their personal performances. But meanwhile, it is pit stop season here in the pit lane. Milton Tomlinson, Dennison, Nils Bakaj in, also Leon Seeley, Brandon Dyer, Joris Peeters Weem. They're all in service, and Tomlinson Dennis comes back out as your leader, and the gap now is 2.2 seconds between him and Bakaj. So that does work out quite nicely, and that is a strategic swing there of a second in the favour of the race leader. So as quick as that, they've done the pit stop, and well, the good thing for MTD as well is he has now got ahead of a lap down car, which the German driver behind him is going to find a way past. Justin Hembery's come out a bit further behind. He's used a lot more fuel by comparison. In fact, Hembery lost 2 seconds there to Milton Tomlinson Dennis in the pit lane. Meanwhile, this is getting very busy down towards turn number 2. That is going to be Andy Jones trying to go around the outside. He's just pitted and come out. Jared Love is ahead of him as your interleader is also pitted. And then we have Joris Peeters Weem. He's right on the back of this as well. So for Peeters Weem, by going just that little bit earlier in the pit stop, the undercut has actually worked out really well for him. And it's going to be the battle for 7th place in the Pro class. And with Kyle Roy 2 seconds behind at this point, you'll have a bit of breathing room perhaps. In fact, Kyle Roy is 7/10 behind the car we're riding on board with. He's at the back end of this group by 2 seconds. But they all come out of this hairpin, 20 minutes still to go. And all the pit stops now, for the most part, are complete. So therefore, we will hide the pit stop data there. We do have a couple of cars who did pit on the open lap still to pit. But otherwise, we do now have all the strategic stops for the most part done. So you will see a little bit of shuffling as Petty and Harris are in. Where exactly are they going to come out, I wonder? Because they were very close, and in fact, things are very uncertain here in the club cars. In fact, I think we've now got an update for you in terms of who's leading club, and here is your new club leader. It is James Fraser who's taking the lead of the cars, ahead of Jack Charles and Rob Gregg, and they have all shuffled their way up the order. Well, there's one driver who's missing here, Steve Hughes. Hughes going along there. What on earth is happening to him? Because he had a really good lead. He built up a huge lead. He's had a 57-second stop. Surely he's not going to the pits and put tyres on, but even so, that wouldn't take 57 seconds. I wonder if he sped into the pit lane, had to serve a stop and hold penalty, but that is a surprise if so. We'll see if we can find out some information on that one, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Hughes has suddenly seen all of that advantage he crafted for himself all in arrears. We've got no information to tell us why, other than he's had a very long pit stop. That's the only thing I can think of. He's picked up a speeding penalty in the pit lane. As actually Shucksmith here is going to burn off a off-track penalty of his own, an automated slowdown penalty, and he drops behind Thomas Weston there, and Weston now into 29th. Woodgate's now coming to the pits. He's one of the drivers who has yet to pit after the open lap incident, so therefore it does mean he's going to fall a long way down the time tower. He's done very well to make his way all the way up to 14th before needing to pit. That may help him out, but coming back to that fault of the club lead, well, here they are. Here is your top 4, and in fact right now you could say here is your top 6. That's Fraser, Giles, Greg, Lynch, and then Harris is 2 seconds behind this, and a further second behind is Jordan Butler. This is going to get very close towards the very end as they make the one out. The 3-1-5 there, trying to come on through. That is going to be a lap down car of just now unlapping itself, and Fraser went a little bit wide, so therefore Giles now right on the back of the club leader, and here they go through turn number 1. Giles look for a move nice and early here. Again, the fact that Fraser will be out of sorts to a degree. Or he looks up the outside. Fraser goes defensive. Here comes Giles around the outside. Can he get it done? Moonshine's Racing Club right now. They'll want Greg to get involved. They'll want to help him out for a 1-2 here today. But you can see Giles there defending hard coming out of turn number 4. They're going to be too wide as they make the way all the way down through Parabolica curve here. And right now the club class definitely delivering plenty of entertainment right at the front of the field. Let's not be mean about our other classes. They've got action going on. We'll come to it shortly. But here's going to be Jack Giles looking around the outside. outside, and Fraser defends. He goes very late on the brakes here. Does he get it stopped? He does. Giles almost follows him off the road. He gets the better exit. Elbows out. He comes across to Fraser. He makes a slight move there, just saying to Giles, look, I know you're there. I'm not giving up on this one. As they come through the right-hander return number 7, he switches back to the outside. To the inside he goes. It's a dummy from Fraser. He says, I can't do it, but actually I can. And Giles falls for it. He goes a bit deep. And now coming up towards turns 9 and 10. It's absolute war between these two. Making the way out to turn number 10 at the moment. Greg still queuing up behind. Lynch is catching up to this. Harris is catching up to this. We're going to have a 6-way fight for the club. But will it win by the end of this one? And I don't know what's going to end first. That battle on my ability to speak her in English. But as they come out to turn 11 in towards 12, Giles there gets a better exit and Fraser falls back for now. But Giles goes deep. He just carries too much speed into the corner. And the pressure is building so much that all of these drivers, I don't think they expect to be battling for the club win. And right now they're battling for all the spots in the top 5. And as they come through Sud Curve, well, the battle ends for at least a brief moment. But Giles just gets ahead there. And, well, all of your top 5 in the club class, they're being observed to be Porsches. But to be fair, Porsche not right now. They are enjoying themselves, no doubt about it. But look at the long queue. And Jordan Butler, he's the 6th place runner here for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport. He wants to bring his Mercedes into the mix and say, have you ever heard about 6.3 litre V8 power? Can I introduce you to the V8 religion? And indeed, right now, if we go any further with that, I think we're going to get a copyright strike from the producers behind is Mad Max. But meanwhile, that's not a Mad Max move there from Philip Harris up the inside of Adam Lynch. He gets it there, and Adam Lynch right now has on the back of his car Eat, Sleep, Sim, Race, Repeat. Well, right now, he definitely needs to try and find a repeat of some of the brave moves he's made earlier on today if he wants to move into full place. He's not going to find it quite easily at this distance, but as we do see there, Rob Craig and James Fraser looking at each other. Lynch going defensive, and well, it's defensive offensive. It looks up the inside and will makes it very clear he's going for first. And right now Philip Harris says, okay, that's fine, I'll let you take the inside line. And now he's going to chase down Fraser and Greg if he can clear Harris. That's going to be the hard part here, because Philip Harris right now is not backing out of this. Too wide to come in towards the next braking zone. It's going to be Harris on the inside. This fight is going to cost him time, and Adam Lynch in the end, he's still trying to hold on back to the inside. It's not going to work there. Lynch falls back, so Philip Harris there putting on a really tight defence. That's running wide. Fraser going wide as Rob Craig has got ahead of his teammate. That happened in the foreground whilst we were looking at what's going on in the background, but Greg now ahead, and I think here Fraser deciding to let his teammate go because Fraser's struggling at this point. I think he's just been a bit unsettled with the battling, but these guys still ahead and all battling hard. But we've got some drama off camera because we have had an incident for Kyle Roy, I believe, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen him drop down the order, and we'll get a replay of that where we can. And Roy right now holding on. Denny Ploger's gone down, but Kyle Roy's been involved in an incident, and that has seen him lose quite a bit of time to the leader of the interclass, that is Jared Love. Well, more on that shortly, we can promise you that, but we've still got more racing action to cover this one, ladies and gentlemen, as we have had Denny Ploger have to tow to bits due to damage. But meanwhile, we do see there John Butler now looking up the inside of Adam Lynch. This is absolutely crazy racing going on here in the club class right now. Oh, goodness me, as Butler's up the inside, and he'll just about squeeze ahead there coming through turn number 4. That Porsche is so strong on corner exit, but once that Mercedes gets going, it goes. And as James Fraser battles now with Philip Harris, Harris is going on through. And I think Fraser at this point letting it go, unless he's going to go all in on the inside here from that far over. Where so that's going to be bold. He's going to go for it. And meanwhile, Butler's still fighting with Adam Lynch. And in the end, the Porsche tries to go around the outside. That's not going to work. Fraser and Harris side by side. And James Fraser right now, he's losing places gradually. But he's putting up a valiant stand here. Indeed, I think he's doing his best Boromir impersonation from Lord of the Rings right now in terms of how heroic the stand is. But as they couple to the brakes, there's going to be Harris on the inside. They've run paint. But they're going to be too wide coming through 9 into 10. And in the end, it's going to be Harris who just squeezed the head, and the Euro Titans endurance driver makes that move at count. But now here comes Jordan Butler. Butler looking up the inside, flashing the headlights there from James Fraser, but in the end I think that's more to distract than to complain. But Butler's all on the back of him as we ride aboard the front bumper. Does he switch the inside? The answer is no. Staying very close there behind the Moonshiner's machine. And right now, I can tell you one thing after this one, they're all going to be wanting some of the moonshine. You know how close it's been, but hold up, that is going to be Adam Lynch. Lynch sneaks back up the inside for 13, and Butler falls back. And now Thomas Weston, the Inter driver on the back of this, is probably looking at this and thinking, oh my good lord, what have I got myself onto the back of? As they all come out the corner, my good lord, keep it clean, guys. As they head down the start-finish straight, they're still fighting hard. It was turn one. It doesn't end this. As Butler's back on the inside, elbows out with James Fraser. Fraser runs slightly wide, and Weston right now, does he make it free? One little small tap to the rear of Butler's car by Fraser. He just gets it stabilised. Look at the queue that's building up behind. That's Fearbold. That's Shucksmith as well. They're all been invited to the top 5 club party right now. And as Eddie Fearbold and Shucksmith get ready to fight each other, Thomas Wester makes it 3 wide with them. You couldn't make it up as Fearbold goes around the outside of Shucksmith, using that Mercedes power to his advantage, and the Ferrari's got no answer, and Weston gets absolutely robbed for overall places there. Thomas Weston was queuing on the back of the club drives, then suddenly gets told he can't play. Meanwhile, James Fraser back at the inside just dives to the inside of Jordan Butler. He gets that stop turn nick and a dime, and now making the way up towards turn 7 and 8. I think things are going to calm down for a brief moment. Well, we're going to leave that for a brief moment because we've got more fighting going. It's in the interclass. Young versus Smith as they make the way 2 wide through Sud curve. And right now, Ross Young trying to hold on to 3rd place here in the class. And Smith is absolutely attacking him non-stop in a counter-attack here. He lost the place earlier on, did Smith. He's trying to get it back, but Ross Young, I think, might have just cleared that. Of course, we were besotted with the battle going on in club, but we are going to take a look back at this battle, ladies and gentlemen. And here's a replay. Now, this is how it all began. It was Ross Young who went on the attack as he made his way through turn number 11. At Mobile 1, it was a mistake there from Smith that opened up the door, but Young tried to go around the outside at this point. Now, that's brave to go high at turn number 12. And, well, in the end, that bravery was rewarded. They were 2 wide all the way through the sequence of quarters. So when did it end? And the answer is it ended as they came through Sud curve. This is where we caught up to them, and it was Young on the inside. Lovely bit of manoeuvre in there from Ross Young. And to be fair, Adam Smith, he was very compliant. He raced respectfully, and that's the racing we love to see, and that is how Ross Young took 3rd place in the interclass off of him. What a battle between them. But whilst their battle cools down for a brief moment, it's not over in terms of battling yet, ladies and gentlemen. 9 minutes to go, and that's Jared Love there being poked down. In fact, that's Kyle Roy. Roy's on the back after Roy had a bit of a mistake earlier on. He's now looking for the lead to the interclass, gives a little bit of a love tap to Jared Love, and Love's going side by side now towards Nord curve. Someone's got to back out here. They're not going to back out, and in the end, Kyle Roy has the lift off at the last moment. Jared Love sweeps around the outside of him, and right now I can tell you one thing, Davey Daniels, the DDK Racing team manager, he's going to be absolutely cheering on his driver at this point, which Jared Love right now is holding on for dear life. And well, remember what we said earlier about the top 20 of this race going a bit quiet. They're now coming alive. It's all weighted to strategy, but Jared Love here finds himself in a very high pressure situation with Kyle Roy breathing down his neck. But the way this race has gone, you would not have thought it's come this way. Love has really been in control for the majority of the race, but Kyle Roy, this is the opposite of what we've typically seen from Kyle Roy, where normally he's the quicker driver earlier on in the races, and it's later in the races his rivals start to catch up to him. But here today, it's the other way round. Roy has been saving pace for the late portion of the race, and I wonder whether that Corvette's got much fresher tyres on it right now, not because he's putting a whole new set. In fact, I think they've only changed 1 or 2 tyres in the pit lane given the time they do have available with the fuel change going in. There's no mandatory pit stop requirements other than put the fuel in to get to the end of the race. Tyre change are optional, but I wonder if Roy, over the course of the first stint, has been protecting his tyres so much that right now he's got so much more life. And we know this Ford Mustang is a very heavy car, but when it comes to braking and tyre degradation, it really wears its tyres down, and that now I think is playing to the hands of Kyle Royce. This interleague battle is absolutely building up to a crescendo. But what about the front of pro? There is Milton Tomlinson Dennis. 3.8 seconds back is Neil Bocage at the number 331 Lamborghini, still ahead, and then we have a 4-second gap back. Oh, that's getting a bit tasty and questionable. I think there was a bit of contact between several drivers. I think that might have been James Fraser and Stephen Kershaw having, oh no, that would not have been there, my apologies. I think that was Steve Hughes and Brad Pickett having a bit of a conversation, but in the end did not go the right way. I think it's getting very firm between all these drivers who are going to be a lap down shortly. As Thomas Weston dives up the inside of Martin Kenyon, actually Shucksmith now starts to squeeze his way through. And Weston and Kenyon fighting over 7th in the interclass, and we see them here in the foreground in the camera shot. The prior two trying to go around the outside to hold off Kenyon, but Kenyon really coming back at him here. And Kenyon looking around the outside there, and in the end, Steve Motorsports car is going to be running a little bit wide, but given the space to cooperate. And to the inside of turn number 10 he goes. It still goes, it's contact. It sends one sideways. Kenyon puts the brakes on immediately to stabilise the car, but also to give the place back to Weston. He wants to give it up, but the problem is there's so many cars together here that right now they're all switching, swapping around each other. You think this was on the freeway rather than on the racetrack, but in the end, Kenyon does give up the spot. And in fact, Kenyon gives up more place than that. He's had to sacrifice so much there to give the place back, but credit to him, that is gentleman racing there. It's finest in the clock, St James and Dexterous Motorsports driver, even if it was the hardest way to have to give a place back. But meanwhile, Ashley Shucksmith, he's got Jordan Jones right behind him. And they've come all the way through this battle, and they're still fighting each other for what is 7th place in the club class. Oh my good lord, and right now there's a long queue of cars behind. That is 28th through to 35th on your screen right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's how close they are. Everywhere you look in this order, whether it's in the same class or overall, there's fighting everywhere right now. Well, it's absolutely brilliant to see for our opening round. And long may this continue throughout the season, because I can tell you one thing, I'm going to need a body double by the end of this season. But meanwhile, as Ashley Shucksmith makes his way out of turn before, well, right now Jordan Jones follows him, but knows that Weston and Cole are absolutely primed to try and pick the place off of him. A little bit Chris Cole missing a front bumper at the moment, as Brad Pickett's Ferrari, the car that did go a bit sideways with some contact with Adrian Howard's car. That's the report we do have now of what happened earlier on. Well, under the brakes they all go, and that is going to be Steve Hughes being passed by Sam Hockley up the inside him. So Hockley takes that place to privateer, and in the end it's going to be Brad Pickett who sneaks on through as well. So change between those drivers overall, but this is a long overall pack. Let's come back to some more class fighting, shall we? And here is Philip Harris. Now, we have had a black flag for James Fraser. We believe he hit an instant point limit, and therefore he's picked up a drive-through penalty, most likely due to a tap between two cars, which is very unfortunate. But here's Harrison Lynch, and Jordan Butler says, can I come out and play? And well, the big old Mercedes gets his elbows out there, gets on the inside, and now Lynch once again has to deal with the fact he's got a full-tilt virtual motorsport car that's trying to stick its nose into a place where it doesn't belong. And well, I think right now Adam Lynch trying to be the bouncer at the All Porsche Club and saying, you can't come in, you're not driving a Porsche. And John Butler says, well, I've got more cylinders than you, I can power my way on past. But that's not how it works with these cars, given that Porsche is so good on quarter exit. And meanwhile, we do see John Butler having to wait. There's Eddie Fearbold and Ashley Shucksmith. They're a bit further back from this battle. There is Fearbold in the rear of your picture in the red Mercedes, and he wants to try and get into it. These 3.7 seconds behind at the moment, and Ashley Shucksmith is a further 6 adrift. So I'm going to keep an eye on that one as Chris Cole is into the pit lane for an instant point drive-through penalty. So that black flag that you see on the time tag is him having to serve that. That's why he's in the pit lane, and that will go away very soon. But as it does, well, meanwhile, we go away back up to the front of the field. And here is Brandon Dyer, the Altitude 3M Esports driver, with 4 minutes to go. And a lot of lap-down cars to have to make his way through. That is not a nice sight to see for him. He's got Elliot Cawte right behind him now at this point. There's Elliot Cawte, the Mercedes DDK driver, looking one way then the other. And right now, Elliot Cawte, he's literally left, he's right, he's centre, he's weaving. He's like a box there. He is literally lurching from side to side there. And right now, I think Brandon Dyer's wondering where exactly is that Mercedes going to go next in the braking zone. The answer is it's going to stay on racing line. But that is Elliot Cawte really saying to him right now, I can attack you at any time. And Brandon Dyer's not got to be intimidated by that. Instead, he's got to focus on what's ahead. And that pack of cars ahead, unfortunately for him, is Steve Hughes, Sam Hockley and Thomas Weston. Weston and Hockley are the problem because of the fact they are looking to do battles. You can see Brandon Dyer in the end make his way on past one of the cars. That's Hughes and Adrian Howard together. He clears both of them. And in fact, he was ahead of Adrian Howard. Howard getting ahead of Steve Hughes there because Hughes decided to back the throttle. So the Altitude 3M Esports drive clears one of them. And he's got more to clear as we do have a black flag for Thomas Weston for track limits. So Weston for instant points in fact as well comes into pits. That will be a big sigh of relief there for what will be Brandon Dyer. Now he's only got one car to deal with in immediate proximity, and with the fact that we do have Sam Hockley now clear of any battling, surely Hockley at this point is going to think to himself going in towards turn 2, okay, you know what? Don't do anything silly, just get out of the way of the altitude car. And he does that immediately coming out of turn 1. He knows where it's to go, and will smart driving there from Hockley. Of course, that does mean Elliot Cawte will come through as well, but for Brandon Dyer, that is a huge sigh of relief there, because that means at least for now, he doesn't have to do any fast manoeuvring. Meanwhile, we come back to the front of the interclass. 2 minutes, 2 laps left, and Jared Love leads it still, but Kyle Roy is all over the back of him like a bad rash there. And I'll tell you one thing, right now, Kyle Roy is not done with this yet. As he powers his way on, we jump aboard the roll cage, and as he makes his way on through, the Axis Sport with SimWorks driver staying very close here as he heads down towards the split scare hairpin. But that Mustang so quick on the straight. But we do have a very strong braking Corvette here. He's going to look around the outside. Is this going to be enough? The answer is going to be no. He tries to venture around the outside, but the Mustang just simply parks up and says, you can try that, but I've got the power. You haven't got the brakes. And as they come through at turn number 8 and towards 9, well, right now Kyle Roy's got a thing. He can go in on the brakes, but he's got to try and find a way to really get Love off of the line and prevent him from getting corner exit traction. To do that, he'd normally have to go up the inside on the braking, but Love will know where that's coming from. Jared Love's got a lot of experience, as does Kyle Roy. These two will be very even to each other right now. Coming in towards turn at number 11 off camera. We had some drama for Jordan Jones, which unfortunately has seen him toe to the pits when he was battling for a top 5 in the club class. We won't be able to get a replay of that now, given how close we are to the end of the race, ladies and gentlemen. But just keeping you apprised of what's going on elsewhere, as Elliot Cawte was almost past Brandon Dyer, but has had an off track that has seen him drop down. But as he's trying to make the way through Seward Curve, we are onto what we believe is your final lap. The white flag is waving as I look out my Cawte booth window from what I can see. And Milton Tomlinson-Dennis in the lead right now for the Samantha Town Racing on the STR team. He heads down towards turn 6 at the moment. And with Nils Bacard 3.5 seconds behind, it does look as though Tomlinson-Dennis in control of this one. With Bacard bringing it a 1-2 for Lamborghini, albeit of 2 different teams. And then Justin Hembery right now, still 2.5 seconds clear. Brandon Dyer, who is still bringing Elliot Cawte with him. There you can see Dyer in the rear of the picture. There is Cawte in the DDK Racing car. So therefore, it does seem as though right now our top 5 in Pro may be settled. But Jared Love still got this 1 lap to go, and the team principal there cheering him on in the YouTube chat. And well, as we do see Love keeping Roy at bay. What can Roy do that's different this time? Well, he doesn't have anything to do in the Spitzker hairpin too far back there. Meanwhile, in your club class, Jack Giles is still leading, ahead of Rob Gregg. Adam Lynch is a bit further back, but Gregg is still within 7/10. But as we see them make the way through, we come back to your overall leader. Here is Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. And as he makes... Oh, goodness me, there's been a big instant there. That is Rob Gregg and Jordan Butler, I think, having to coming together. And for Tomlinson-Dennis, he's got to breathe here as he makes his way through the last couple of corners. And well, here today, on the first round of the season, last season, bad luck hit him so many times he didn't know what good luck looked like. Today, there's been no bad luck. It's all worked out for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. He takes victory over in Pro for Samantha Town Racing header Nils Bacard, the runner-up there for NJB Performance, the privateer outfit. Justin Hembery will come home in 3rd place there for Daniel Newman Racing Red, completing the prime overall podium just ahead of Brandon Dyer and Elliot Cawte. We will then see Raz Harper come home in 6th place there for DDK Racing, ahead of Andy Jones and Joris Peeters Weem. But behind them, there is Jared Love taking the in to win the first of the season for DDK with RaceStatBot.com, ahead of Carl Roy, who pushed in the distance for Axis and Sport Simworks. He'll then be 3rd in the class, and we haven't talked about this man all day today, but right now he's doing really well. But just before he gets that finish line, we can talk about him a little bit because Schubert Cardozo's just crossed the line in 12th place. But right now, for the Beowulf Racing team, Nicholas Carlson, he's gone under the radar. And, well, after a little bit of elbows out racing at the start, he's going to come on home in 13th overall. But for him, 3rd in the interclass. This is a brilliant way to start off the season for the Swede. He'll be absolutely smiling at that one. And then we do see Adam Smith just behind their 4th in Inter, ahead of Daniel Page, who completes your top 15. And it'll be Villa Katonen in 16th place there, ahead of Leighton Austin and Ross Young. You've got to feel for Ross. He has been fighting all the way through today. I think he'll be absolutely exhausted. I think they'll have to lift him out of that car. But meanwhile, Benjamin Massey comes towards the timeline, 20th here for the Inox Motorsport team. A bit of a challenging race today, but we still have 2 drivers to finish this race. And after an incredible race-long battle for the club win, Jack Giles is going to take the first club win of the season for Eurotitans Endurance. He's not going to quite believe it, but he has done it. And 3 seconds behind him will be Adam Lynch to complete those who finished on the lead lap of club class. And just behind him, but a lap down as classified due to being lapped right to the end, Jordan Butler. Albeit there is a question mark about that with the contact he had with Rob Gregg, but at least on the road, Butler will be your 3rd place finisher in the club class. And what a brilliant set of battles there, with Hillip Harris and Ashley Shucksmith completing the club top 5 down to 26th place, and Brad Pickett, an Inter driver, intervening there in 25th. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, as Milton Tomlinson-Dennis parks up on the start for this straight, I can feel the emotions for this guy right now. I can tell you one thing, we're not going to get a feed through to the car, but for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, as he does toe to the pit lane there, it's been a long time coming, that win, and he has definitely earned it. But with that, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, as we look to the scenic view, and here they are. And as we can see, after an incredible 60 minutes of racing, to open up our all-new Superstars format here for Season 12 of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship, brought to you on iRacing. Today, in round 1 of the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg Grand Prix circuit, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, your winner for Samantha Town Racing STR by 1.6 seconds over Nils Bacard. We did see the German driver there bringing home the runner-up spot ahead of Justin Hembery, with the Daniel Newman Racing Red driver in the end losing the top 2 as time went on, but most likely due to having to go past lap-down cars rather than not having the pace. Indeed, traffic playing an absolutely critical part as the race went on, but still completed the podium and held a 2-second advantage over Brandon Dyer, who for Altitude 3M Esports was able to hold off the DDK with RaceStatBot.com pair of Elliot Cawte and Raz Harper. Andy Jones took 7th for DCW Racing Blue, the only DCW Racing driver to survive what happened through the opening couple of corners. And then Joris Peeters Weem took 8th place there for the privateer outfit, ahead of Jared Love, who was 9th, but most importantly for him, inter-class winner for DDK with RaceStatBot.com. And he'll be absolutely pleased as punch for that, ahead of Kyle Roy, who was the runner-up in the end, but the two of them separated by only 6 tenths. In from the Axis Simworks driver, it was then Charlie Walker who was best of the rest at 11th place, the Relentless Racing driver who did a brilliant job of coming up through the field. And indeed, given the fact he started in 16th to finish 11th today, given the fierceness of the competition, he won't be upset about that. And Schubert Cardozo, he may have only gained 1 place from 13th to 12th, but the InterRacing team driver definitely had a quiet race, but a solid one. Nicholas Carlson, well, he made his way in the end to 13th for Beowulf Racing Team, third Inter drivers, but right behind him, Adam Smith started in 30th place, snuck his way through all the madness on the open lap, and after that, 14th is his reward, and the Euro Titans Endurance driver will be absolutely pleased as punch. Daniel Page completed your top 15 for Daniel Newman Racing Red, ahead of Villa Cotonou, with Leighton Austin, Ross Young, Ben Woodgate, and Benjamin Massey completing the top 20. And a shout out there to Ben Woodgate, he had to pit at the end of lap number 1 due to damage picked up in the open lap to finish 19th. That is a very impressive recovery drive there from the Inter Racing Team driver. Outside the top 20, in 21st place, your club class winner, Jack Giles, the Euro Titans Endurance driver. He stands at the top of all the club drivers for this race, at least, with Adam Lynch 3 seconds behind the privateer, who had to fight so hard in the end. I don't think he knew what a clean lap was, and that's not to say he was dry racing dirty, but the fact he never had a chance to race on the racing line. Jordan Butler took third in the club class, 23rd overall for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, albeit, of course, a lap down, and ahead of Philip Harris there for Euro Titans Endurance. Brad Piggott, the Inter driver, took 25th, ahead of Ashley Shucksmith, with Adrian Howard, Sam Hockley, Steve Hughes, and Thomas Weston completing the top 30. And well done, Steve Hughes, for the recovery, although we have that question mark about what happened in the pit lane. We believe it was a stop and hold penalty, given the fact he was in the pits for the best part of a minute, but we're not quite sure. We did see 31st, Stephen Kershaw, ahead of Luke Van Gertel, who had to try and recover after the open lap incident. And it was Christopher Petty ahead of Arno Bragt, Ollie Smith, Chris Cole, Eddie Fearbold, Dwayne Hoffman, Martin Brandon, and Rob Gregg, who round off your top 40. Outside the top 40, in 41st, we did have there Sean Clark ahead of Justin Noel, and then it was 2 laps down to Denny Ploger, as it was to Alfred Kirstein, and also there to James Fraser. 3 laps down to Leon Seeley, so unfortunately for Samantha Tan Racing, whilst it went right for one of the drives, it didn't go right for him, and Jordan Jones was with him in the end, and it was 4 laps down to Martin Kenyon. He'll be the last of your classified finishers, and then we did have retirements for Bradley Setters after that huge incident for the last couple of corners. Very unfortunate for him. Mikhail Abasek, Corey Price, Richard Simnor, Nathan Healy, Frank Buyerson, Max Dean, and Ashley Coupland. But we go to the classes now, because this is where the points are made and paid. And as we can see, Milton Tomlinson Dennis, your pro winner, and which takes the maximum points ahead of Niels Bacage, with Justin Hembery completing the podium. Brandon Dyer and Elliot completed their top 5 ahead of Raz Harper, with Andy Jones in the end taking home a consolatory 7th ahead of Joris Peeters Weem. Then it was Charlie Walker and Schubert Cardozo, who completed the pro top 10. With the InterRacing team driver in the end very comfortably clear of Daniel Page, who was indeed one of many pro drivers who were caught up in heroics and theatrics today. Leighton Austin the same for Relentless Racing, and Ben Woodgate behind him. It was the first 5 seconds to Benjamin Massey, was the last lead lap finisher at Inox Motorsport. It was a lap down to Chris Cole and Justin Noel, both caught up in the open lap instant, and 3 laps down to Leon Seeley, with a frustrating race. And we did have retirements for Bradley Setters, Corey Price, and Richard Simnor, and also Ashley Coupland. Then to the interclass we go, the second of our 3 classes, and here we can see Jared Love, your winner for DDK with Race Stat Bot. Despite Kyle Roy showing his intentions right towards the end of the race, we managed to hold off his fellow Scotsman. So the battle of the 2 Scotsmen there ended with the Ford taking victory over the Corvette driver for Axis SimSport with SimWorks, and then it was a 37-second gap to Nicholas Carlson for Beowulf Racing Team. Indeed, that top 2 in a class of their own today. Still Carlson, he'll be happy to be on the podium ahead of Adam Smith and Villa Cotonou, and indeed Beowulf Racing Team taking a double top 5, split by the Euro Titans Endurance 251. Then Ross Young was 6th there, just ahead of his teammate for Clark St James with DXT of Brad Pickett. Pickett was a lap down, the first of many, and also added to that list was Adrian Howard, Sam Hockley, and Thomas Weston, albeit all 3 of them enjoyed some brilliant battles in the second stint. And best of the rest on that was Stephen Kershaw ahead of Luke Van Gertel. Then we did see behind the MJK SimRacing driver, it was 2 laps down to Alfred Kirstein. The Dane, unfortunately, not having a happy day at the office, was Simstrapped by Glass Tech Racing. And it was 4 laps down to Martin Kenyon after that huge shunt with Bradley Setters' car. But he still finished the race, and sadly we did not see finishes for Mikhail Abasek, nor for Nathan Healy or Frank Buyerson. Then to the club class, last but by no means least. And here we can see Jack Giles, in the end, your winner for Euro Titans Endurance. And indeed, 3.2 seconds clear of Adam Lynch, but that is not the story. And the story was, in the end, anybody inside that top 10 today in the club class could have won this race. But Giles was the one to be able to get it to work, both on strategy and on battling pace. Then we did see Jordan Butler in 3rd there, a lap down for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, but I think he wanted another lap to see if he could steal 2nd place back of Lynch. But he was ahead of Philip Harris in the end for Euro Titans Endurance, and Ashley Shucksmith completed the top 5. 5. The privateer was promoted ahead of Steve Hughes with a 3W UKSR driver, in the end having a bit of a difficult day after that elongated pit stop and leading for so long it all went wrong in the pit lane. Christopher Petty took 7th there, the privateer ahead of Arno Prout, with the MJK SimRacing chart unfortunately not able to flex his muscle here in Germany, nor did Ollie Smith for Simstrap by Glass Tech Racing. Eddie Theobald was 10th, the privateer ahead of Dwayne Hoffman for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, whose car ended up sideways at one point, not the way he wanted it to go. And then Martin Brandon took 12th place at Axis SimSport Simworks ahead of Rob Gregg, who we believe there was contact between him and John Butler on their closing lap, and that's why he's been demoted all the way down to 13th due to having to tow to the pit lane. But again, that'll be subject to Stewart's inquiries, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that's happened, but we don't know anything more, and we're not going to speculate. Sean Clark was 14th behind, and then we did see Denny Plug in at 15th there, 2 laps down, alongside James Fraser. And Jordan Jones was the last finisher of the race in the club class in 17th, 3 laps down for Darkwind Racing, and ahead of the privateer of Max Dean, who was your sole club retiree. Well, that's a rundown of all the finishing positions subject to any Stewart's inquiries. And, well, the racing may have stopped, but this broadcast isn't going to stop just yet, ladies and gentlemen, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time will be our first post-round interviews of the season in terms of the points-paying race. Of course, we had a few at Sebring, but we're going to bring you those first interviews in round number 1 as quick as we can. So don't go anywhere. You won't miss them. We will see you as soon as we can. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Sardply gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately go on the attack into the braking zone. 1 driver into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there in 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the 2 of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the 2 Fords, for the Ford and the Corvette, 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, because they're realistically in a completely different race, they're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, up high, he decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. It is, but look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bank. Look back for the rear of your second place runner of Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here, although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back. But here comes Lux in the tow in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to 3rd, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only 1 car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being 2 wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time, as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillison's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not.
not. And Brian Beards up the end. He gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him. But too wide, they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes to the switchback there. 9 is no way through. And in the end, as they come down towards turn number 8, well, there, Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside. But is it the right call?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've just double-checked these will be our first Superstars interviews of the season, of course, because the broadcast on the pre-season was post-round. So therefore, who exactly is our first interview for the season? It is none other than this man who joins me now in the interview room. We are joined by Jared Love from DDK Racing with RaceStatBot.com. Jared, good evening to you, and well, what a way to start off your season. At Sebring, you didn't even make 3 corners. Here today, you've made it every corner, and you've made it the in to win. How does that feel?
Yeah, brilliant. I've put in so much practice, like the last 6 weeks or so. Last season was a total write-off. I got about 4 races in and went, this is not going well. And I missed a couple of races, but I've been working with somebody who's a coach, a couple of weak points, and here we are, we're improving. So that's the goal. I'm delighted with the win.
Oh, brilliant. Well, the practices have definitely paid off today. And looking at the Hockenheimring circuit and your choice of car, I mean, we know the Ford Mustang, quite a powerful car. Was it your first choice, or did you have to do a bit of debate to settle with the Ford Mustang?
Yeah, I've done a bit of debate. It was kind of a last-minute choice, actually. Just before Sebring, I decided to change. I was contemplating the Lambo, the Merc. That's what my 2 teammates are in. However, I thought, you know what, the Mustang's my favourite car. I've got the most experience driving it, and I thought, you know what, let's make a good push for the maybe doing well in the championship here. So I'll go in my quickest car, which is the Mustang.
All fair play. Going with your quickest car, and I think it's a good investment to go with it. And it immediately showed in qualifying, 11th overall, but on pole position, and with 3 plyros between yourself and the next nearest into driver. Were you surprised?
No, I really like the Hockenheimring. We done it, was it 2 seasons ago for the pre-season race? Much like Sebring, I think I made about 4 corners and got taken out. Something about practice races and me not finishing the first lap. But I had a bit of pace there. I think my teammate at the time, Peter Duke, actually won that race. So I've always had pace here, and it was just clicking. I think I've got the quickest time of the Mustang on Garage 61 this season, which is a second quicker than my qualifying lap I've done there. So I don't know why, but for some reason I'm just really quick around here.
Well, you're lightning quick, no doubt about it. And when we did go racing, of course, we saw you have quite a comfortable start, although there was a big instant through turns 2, 3 and 4. Where did you find yourself in that?
Yeah, I think I was right next to it. So I think I was on the inside at turn 2, and there was a bit of pushing and shoving almost into the first corner, and I just broke a bit early, took 3rd gear, took the inside line, and then I saw some smoke, and I think it was 2 people next to me. Fortunately for me, it was is it Luke Van Gortel potentially? I might be butchering that name or pronunciation. That was the nearest intercar to me, and he got involved in it. So really unlucky for him. I'm sure we would have had a fantastic race, but yeah, lucky for me.
Well, a bit of fortune, like you say, you're spot on there. It was Luke who was quite close to you as it all went a bit wrong for him and many a driver on the right-hand side of the road. But still, you were on the left side, which was the best side to be on. And after that, the race seemed to settle down in the first stint. Did it feel as though you could back off and perhaps focus on strategy?
Yeah, I managed to save about a lap of fuel, albeit I think me and my teammate Ryan Harper, Raz, decided to go for an undercut purely because there was a lot of traffic coming up. So we decided to just, you know what, our other teammate was in the midst of that traffic, and he was saying they weren't really getting out of the way, which, you know, they're not obligated to do with the rules, with the blue flags. They're to stay where they are and we're to overtake them. But we thought, you know what, we'll pit early, try and get clean air, and I think, to be fair, it didn't really make much difference, but that was the plan anyway. But I wasn't really looking to battle the pro drivers too much, certainly not in the first stint.
Oh, fair play. And I think a smart call to make. So the first stint out the way for the most part. We did see in the end pit around about what was, as I just double check my notes,
lap 21, so in the middle of the pit stops, really, in the middle of the pit window. Was that always the plan, or was that inspired perhaps by reacting to other drivers who pitted early?
It was reacting to the traffic that we were catching. There was some club drivers in front. And me and Raz decided, you know what, rather than battling them and maybe losing half a second here or there, we'd just go for the pit. We miscalculated. We thought we would come out in clean air. Unfortunately, we came out behind, I think it was Ross Young in the interclass, a fellow Scotsman, but he wasn't really holding us up too much. He was, you know, I think everyone was so close on pace, certainly in the race anyway.
Oh, indeed. And that was a key theme, of course, drivers being very close on pace. But when we did see the pit stops finally concluding, you were given clear track, you were still leading in the interclass. But there's only one problem. There's a fellow Scotsman who kind of wants to take the win off of you, Kyle Roy.
Yeah, almost a mirror image of the first race last season as well. We were battling for most of the race. He's so quick, he's so consistent. Hopefully there's a lot more battling to come and go. There was initially when I came at the pits, there was a couple of cars between us. One of them being Andy Jones in the Pro class, and I decided to not hold him up as such, like deliberately, but I decided to defend him quite hard because Raz was in front of me and he was my teammate, and I wanted him to get that clean air and get a couple of second gap, which I managed to get.
Well, you managed to hold on in the end, even if Kyle did try to really throw a move or two at you in his Corvette. And we got to see the chalk and cheese of the two cars really play out. So a first win on the board to start off the season. I mean, it looks as though the bad luck, at least for now, has got away. I'm not going to tempt it, of course, after Sebring here today. So next up, we head to none other than what is, I do believe, the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. What are your expectations of the Belgian circuit?
I like it in the dry. I believe it's forecast to rain, so there'll certainly be some practice needing to be carried out there. I think I'm quite fast in it. I've not raced it since the 24 hours last year, so it's been a while. We'll see. I'm not going to say that, I'll be up there, because you never know, who's going to put the practice in, who's really good at set tracks. I'm good at Hockenheim. Could be that Kyle's, phenomenal at Spa, and he's going to be 20 seconds up the road next race. So yeah, we'll see. I'll put some practice in, do the best I can. My goal is always the top sort of 5 would be a realistic goal, I would say.
Well, I like that. Setting realistic expectations and pushing beyond them. And I think we all look forward to seeing if you can push beyond them at Spa-Francorchamps next round. But just as we get ready to let you go, Jared, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Shout out to my wife. Big thanks to her. She lets me have a bit of SimRacing time during the week to get the practice that allows me to be competitive. Shout out to everyone at SRI, yourself, the admins that run the league. It's such a well-run league. Rule sets, 60 people on the grid all fighting reasonably fairly at competitive paces. And shout out to the boys at DDK as well, which all chipping in, giving each other advice and working on strategy with each other sort of throughout the week for the next race.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I'm glad to hear that you've settled in nicely with the guys at DDK Racing, and I'm sure they'll be very pleased for the shout-out. But with that, Jared, we'll leave it there. Congratulations on taking the first in to win the season. It wasn't easy, but you did it the hard way, and in the end, you've set yourself up nicely for next round. We'll catch you at the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, but until then, save the moment and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. You too. Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Jared Love. And I mentioned there the fact, and it's very true, when we did have a pre-season event 2 seasons ago at this circuit, it all went wrong for Jared in that pre-season race. He didn't complete the first lap. His teammate, Peter Duke, took the win there, only to find bad luck struck him all the way through the season until the very end. Well, he got the bad luck out the way at Sebring this season so far, and for Jared in the end, we saw a brilliant performance today, where very little went wrong. Now, you could say he was quite fortunate to be on the left side, or the correct side, if you will. Almost said the right side, which to the left of the right, etc. But he was on the good side of the instant on the opening couple of corners, and the DDK with race stat bot driver was able to avoid what happened there and then able to just maintain the gap. Although admitting the fact that as he came out of the pit lane, found a little bit of traffic with drivers who were effectively
off strategy because they had yet to pit, but he negotiated and didn't lose too much time, but it was a worry, and there was that last-minute worry in the final stint of Kyle Roy catching up, and of course he does know that his fellow countryman, a very quick driver. They've had battles previously, but he was able to keep the Corvette behind him. However, this could be the start of something very special in a rivalry between those two, and admitting to the fact he loves the Hockenheimring, Spa-Francorchamps isn't a stronger circuit, hasn't raced that as frequently, so he's got to put in the practice, and we'll have to wait and see whether the practice pays off in a week's time, whether he can make it 2 wins from 2, with rain expected in our next round. But ladies and gentlemen, what's expected now are a few more interviews, and up next, well, we are making our way to the club class. We'll be back very shortly for our next interview. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to come to none other than Jordan Butler from the club class, who joins me in the interview room. Jordan, good evening to you. And that race, I mean, there's probably a few verbs that can, or adjectives that can describe it. Chaotic, hectic, crazy. But what was it like for you to come home third in, I think, a 7-way battle for the win in the club class?
That was just, I'm absolutely sweating after that. It was absolutely mental.
Well, mental's an absolutely brilliant way to describe it as well, but we wind it all the way back before we talk about the battle, of course. Coming into this season, you've gone with the Mercedes AMG. Why is that?
Purely just, I thought I'd try it. I was driving the Ferrari last season and jumped in the Mercedes just before the 12 hours of Sebring, and just, I love it. It's absolutely amazing. I think it's brilliant.
Oh, fair play. A brilliant car, one you love, a good choice to go with. And of course, coming into this round, in qualifying, a respectful 41st overall, but most importantly, 5th in class. Were you surprised that, happy with it, or did you think there was more out there?
Really, really shocked with that, actually. I tested a little bit this morning and wasn't getting nowhere near my qualifying times. And I don't know, it must have been track temperature or whatever it was. And I just sort of pulled some extra pace out and just sort of kept with it and just kept being consistent and kept that sort of pace going.
Well, the pace definitely arrived in qualifying and in time for the race as well. Now, when we went into the race, of course, we did have a big incident that occurred at the back end of the top 10, but it did collect drivers inside the top 20 and eventually the top 30. How was the opening lap for yourself from your perspective?
It was just trying to find a bit of space where there wasn't a car or a car going off. It felt like I was Lightning McQueen at the beginning of the film, where he's just diving in and out, just trying to move away from people.
Oh, brilliant. I love that analogy there. And for those who haven't seen it, check out Cars 1 and you'll know exactly what Jordan is referring to. And that scene, absolutely brilliant. But after you dodged all that, things did calm down a little bit initially. It looked as though the first stint then was a bit more about just settling into the race.
Yeah, just sort of settling in, just trying to get used to, again, this is my first season, just trying to get used to the drivers around me, seeing how they sort of drive, if they're aggressive or not. And then I did get hit in the hairpin, which gave me a bit of rear end damage. So I thought I'd pit a bit earlier just to sort of buffer that off, and it seemed to work.
Now, with regards to early pit stop that was forced on you, it did work quite nicely, like you're saying. At that point onwards, it looked as though it actually gave you some clear track after the pit stop.
Yeah, it did. I actually pulled out my fastest lap time in the time just where I was just in clean air, not worrying about other people. It was actually quite nice to be in a bit of clean air and not have people in front or behind and just be able to focus.
Now, of course, after that pit stop, nobody in front, you could focus. But then suddenly, everyone's had to do their pit stop. And then just take us through the fact that I believe you'd come out at the time, I think in 6th or 7th in the club class once all the pit stops were done. The top 5 of club starts to fight. There's 5 Porsche 992s in front of you, and suddenly you decide to turn up to the club in your Mercedes. I mean, they look like they got the bouncers out on you and said no Mercedes allowed.
Yeah, I know. I did feel a bit left alone out there, I'm not going to lie.
And with regards to that battle, we did see you really try to go for some moves into the hairpin for a number of the corners. It looked as though the Mercedes had so much straight line speed, but in the corners, it just had no ability to keep the Porsches behind.
Yeah, no, it was just coming out of the hairpin. It was just struggling, just trying to get it turned in and then getting the traction down without it sort of spinning up was quite difficult.
Still, you're able to start making progress, but as we saw the battling continue through the remaining 20 minutes, I mean, it was absolutely entertaining, to say the least. You were picking up the places, and they started to drop away. I mean, when you're thinking, I can go for the win at this point.
I'm not going to lie, I didn't even know what position I was in. I saw that there were 4 cars in my class in front, and I thought, right, I just want to try and get to the front of this little pack, and then we can see where we go from there.
Oh, fair play. Well, focus on the cars in front of you. That's the way to do it. And in the end, you were rewarded with a 3rd place. Albeit, I do have to ask, what happened at the end of your final act? So I believe there's a bit of a moment between yourself and Rob. Greg, we're not saying you're at fault or anything. We just didn't see what happened. It seems like Rob had to tow to the pits.
Yes, no, I think he spun, and as he just come on a bit too eagerly. He has already apologised. Come on a bit too eagerly and just hit me on the side. Luckily, it was last 2 corners, last lap.
Oh, thankfully, in the end, didn't spoil your chance of result. It is unfortunate it's happened. It's great that you and Rob have been able to talk it through already after things have cooled on down. And that means a podium on your first race of the season. I mean, surely it's only upwards from there when we head to Belgium.
I really hope so. I mean, I love Spa. Everybody knows Spa. I love Spa. I couldn't have asked for a better first race to this championship.
Oh, fair play. We look forward to seeing what you can do at Spa-Francorchamps in a week's time. But just before we do get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to my girlfriend Chelsea, my 2 kids for always supporting me, my best friend Liam, who normally watches every race that is broadcasted that I'm part of, everybody at Full Tilt Motorsport that gave me this opportunity to race with them. And also thank you to you and everyone here at SRI to make this possible.
Oh, Jordan, well, a big thank you to you for joining me in the interview room. We really appreciate your time this evening, and thank you for trying to help us make sense of the madness of the club battle for the podium. Well done for taking 3rd place today. We look forward to plenty more from yourself at Spa-Francorchamps in a week's time. But until then, stay with the moment, enjoy that podium, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
So it's here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport Jordan Butler. And, well, surprised himself with 5th place in qualifying. Talking about the fact there that he hadn't really had the time to practice as much as he would have liked to have. And therefore, to be 5th in such a close class, well, it only was upwards from there. Admitted that what happened at the start race was really get your head down and survive the instant through the first few corners, but after that was able to focus. Albeit a bit of damage to the car towards the end of the first stint meant he was forced to pit earlier than he planned, but it did work out for him in the end. He was quite grateful for clear track, and it gave him the ability to make progress. But then that progress would come up against a wall of Porsches, and he did a bit there. The fact there was a bit of a surprise, but he didn't know what he was actually battling for at the time. He was more focused on just battle with the club drivers in front. Only to find out when he'd finished the race, he had taken a spot on the podium. But to be fair, absolutely ecstatic about it. And now looking ahead to Spa-Francorchamps, a circuit he loves. And well, could he make it another podium? Could he even take his first win of the season there? We'll have to wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. But speaking of drivers who've been waiting to have a chat with us, we've got 2 more lined up for interview. Another one coming up very shortly. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our sim strap by GlassTech Racing Inter driver of Alfred Kirsten, who joins me in the interview room. Alfred, good evening to you. A bit of a challenging day today. 5th place in qualifying in the interclass, but 13th on the road in the end due to an incident. I mean, are you happy with today? Are there promising signs, or is it a bit of a sad day for yourself?
I think it's most of a sad day for me because I had some good pace in the qualifying and also some good pace in the race, and the first stint was clean. I had a little bit incident in the pit lane where I got a unsafe pit entrance, so 40 seconds penalty for me. And then I came out and was in a crash, so I need to tow and get into the pits.
Oh, that's a shame. But to be fair, it's done. But let's talk about the positives of your day, of which there were plenty. And before we really come into the positives, choice of car for this season. You brought the Mercedes. Motivated by the team or yourself? Tell us a little bit about your car choice.
Yeah, most of the GlassTech drivers also picked up the Mercedes, so that's probably great. why I chose it. And yeah, I think it's a great car, and it's a very competitive car in the Hockenheim.
Oh, fair play. And I do have to ask the livery on the car. I mean, I tell you one thing. You've got I think you've got the Danish flag on the car there in terms of the full livery. Is that how you normally race? Because I love it on the car. As we look at the replay footage here of you ahead of the Union Jack car.
Yeah, it's Matt Hoyland and Marius Hipman that has made the livery, and it's a fantastic livery. And I'm very glad to have the Danish flags on it.
Oh, brilliant. Well, coming from the car choice and the livery to your qualifying session, 21st overall, 5th in class. Sounds as though you were happy with your qualifying performance. Were you surprised, or do you think there was even more time out there?
Yeah, I think a little bit.
Oh, fair play. Might have been a bit more time out there, and we saw it in the race. And then you're able to make progress. I mean, that first stint, it looks like you dodged most of the chaos that folded out, and you were making your way towards the podium.
Yeah, actually, I didn't know where I was in the positions, but yeah, it was a very chaotic start, also for me. But I dodged the most of it and got out to make a clean first stint.
Well, 100% a very clean first stint. And in terms of how you set yourself up for coming into the pits, did you stick to your plan in terms of when you pitted, or did you change it? Because we have such a big pit window with the 75% fuel tank.
So me and the pits ain't good friends for the most of the time. I have in Sebring 12 hours. I also had an incident on the stint 1 in the pit lane, and I really focused to brake early, not to get any speed in the pit. But unfortunately, I got a penalty, and I actually haven't looked it back, so I don't know why. I got it, maybe a line I crossed or something.
Oh, quite possibly. You may have crossed one of those cursed pit entry lines. It does happen every so often, but still, we'll let you look at that when you're ready. Talking about some other positives, so obviously the penalty, you came back out, you tried to make up the places where you could. I mean, you found yourself surrounded at that point by, I believe, quite a variety of club drivers as well as Inter drivers. Did it feel a little bit odd having to fight your way past them?
Yeah, and I was faster than most of the guys, I think so, but I knew I wasn't going for a podium at this time, so I just stayed back and going for a clean second stint. But unfortunately, I ended up in a crash. I really don't know what happened, but it looks really weird to me. Yeah.
Well, a bit of an awkward crashing in, ruining what could have been, well, bringing an end to a bit of a ruined day, but plenty of positives, good qualifying pace. We know you've got the pace to be on the podium, so when we do head to Belgium next week for Spa-Francorchamps, is that going to be the plan?
Yeah. Spa is my favorite track, and I think I'm have a good pace on it, and I know the track very well. I've raced it in many other games, so yeah, hoping for a podium on Spa.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing if you can chase the podium there in a week's time. But just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, SI of course is a very good league, and it's my first race, and yeah, I have fun. And I always want to give GlassTech Racing a shout out. Always supporting team.
Oh, well, we're glad you've had fun today, Alfred, and that you've definitely got a very supportive team behind you at GlassTech Racing with SimStrat. And we look forward to plenty more from yourself in the weeks and rounds ahead. Sorry it didn't quite work out today, but we'll see you at Spa-Francorchamps, and hopefully we'll see you achieve that podium that you're definitely chasing.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we heard there from Alfred Kirsten, and, well, our Danish driver definitely having a bit of a challenging day today, but at the same time also enjoying himself out there, whilst there were plenty of positives. And, well, one of those items being, of course, his qualifying lap there, being able to take the 5th place in qualifying, and in the end it didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to in the race, with, we believe, a penalty for the pit lane entry by the sounds of things, crossing a line of some description, but still plenty to take away from this one and to build up going into the next round. So expect him to be lightning quick. And, well, I can tell you one thing right now. The Simstrack by Glass Tech Racing driver, if he gets the bad days out the way today, he'll definitely have some more positive days to come, including in Belgium. But with that, we've got one more interview to come, ladies and gentlemen. But who's it going to be with? You're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our final interview of the evening, joining me now in the interview room is going to be none other than your club driver of Adam Lynch. Adam, good evening to you. And as we spoke to Jordan Butler earlier on, we asked him, how do you make sense of what happened to the club class today? I mean, can you make sense of the madness, the battle and everything? You were in the thick of it all.
It was kind of, I pitted early. And then obviously I was driving on my own for a while. I had a spin at the hairpin, thinking I'd be really far back after it. Turns out I wasn't, and then everyone just started pitting, and then there was a car in front of me, 2 cars in front of me, 2 cars behind, like everywhere. So it was madness.
Oh, well, absolute madness. But before we come into trying to dissect all the madness, let's just wind it back a little bit. Coming into this season, running the Porsche 992. Is that by choice of yourself, or is it a bit of a change of the fact, or is this the car you absolutely love?
Yeah, I've driven this GT3 mostly in iRacing. Kind of when I do endurance as everyone does. It's just kind of the car I picked up and stuck with it really. So lovely car.
All fair play. Well, a lovely car and a car that seems to suit you. And in qualifying, it definitely suited you. 2nd in class, 37th overall. The only driver you couldn't beat to pole position in the end was one that did out-qualify you by quite some margin. But I get the feeling you might have been happy with that 2nd place.
Yeah, I knew there's more time on the table, but I don't think there was any beating P1 in quali. So happy with the P2. Yeah.
All fair play. And then going into the race itself, of course, we did see a big instant on the open lap that really caused the field to split, particularly in the mid-pack. But of course, starting that far back, I get the feeling you had plenty of sight of what happened.
Yeah, it just kind of, like, I wasn't expecting it, because obviously the first sector was all clean, and then you go into second sector, just massive crash. You're like, oh, okay. And then managed to stay clear of it all, keep fighting with the cars around me, so...
Well, managed to keep clear of the instant, and we did see over the first stint plenty of battling. I mean, we've got some footage of you here being chased down by Eddie Fearbold. I mean, whether there was a driver in front of you or behind, you had to fight. Did that cause you to change or rethink your strategy at any point?
No, not really. Just keep driving the way I was. I mean, it was usually I've had experience of races where I've kind of just been on my own a lot of the time, and it's just like cars like a second behind me, 2 seconds in front of me. So it's nice to have a race where I've got cars fighting me all the time, and they're just coming with the same approach to every battle, every lap. Just try and put everything out on the table.
Oh, without a doubt. And speaking of the pit stop and then going into your second stint, we saw the battles just started coming and they didn't stop. And in the end, whether it was you battling with the likes of James Fraser, Jack Giles, Rob Gregg, Jordan Butler, I mean, you're probably absolutely loving it. I can imagine you're absolutely pretty drenched in sweat right now from it all.
Yeah, it was a very sweaty one coming into that race. Jordan chasing me down the whole way, and then I think Rob in front of me, I think he spun, and then I managed to stay clear of it, and I think Jordan just got caught in it. So I kind of just had clear air to the finish then. But that battle was a good one. It was the whole race, so yeah, I loved it.
Oh, without a doubt. And at one point as well, trying to chase down Jack Giles, who just seemed to be a little bit too quick today. Did you think you could perhaps catch him at the end, or was he just a little bit too far?
Yeah, it was too far. I think if I didn't have the spin, I just after I pitted, I think I could have won, but take what I can get in a P2 first race is exactly what I was hoping for. So,
Oh,
right.
fair. Sorry, a fair play, I'd say. A second place, a great result to start the day off and the season off, particularly when you've had so many battles. I mean, if that's how it's going to start, surely at this point, you're looking at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps right now and thinking, come on, bring it on.
Yeah, it's not my fastest track relative to I think a lot of other people, but no, I'm putting in a lot of practice at the minute, and I'm really enjoying just driving. So probably throughout the weekend and throughout next week, I'll practice in a lot. Trying to get everything I can out of the Porsche at Spa.
Well, plenty of practice to go in for the weeks and rounds ahead, and we look forward to seeing how you reap the rewards of all that practice. But just before we do get ready to let you go, I do have to ask, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Just SRI as a whole, really. I got recommended by some endurance teammates who I think have driven the GTEs before, and they obviously recommended me to yourselves. And yeah, the first two races, even though Sebring didn't end the greatest for me, and that, but here today the battles were just unbelievable. So yeah, SRI. Great.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Adam, it's been brilliant to catch up with yourself, and well done on being our run-up today in the club class. We look forward to plenty more in the rounds ahead, including at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in a week's time. But until then, save that podium, enjoy it, have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we will see you in round number 2.
Thanks, Bob.
So, ladies and gentlemen, here and there from our final interview of the day, Adam Lynch, the privateer, as we did see the replay footage there of the spin that we did not catch on the broadcast. So it's good that he brought it up and we have caught it in the replay footage, and that is an explanation as to why he found himself brought down into that battle and having to fight his way through. But talking about there the fact, choosing the Porsche because it is a car that he enjoys and feels very comfortable with, and that was reflected in qualifying, although could not get anywhere near close in the end what was our pole position time set in the club class. And we should mention that driver's name, we shouldn't be rude and not say it was Steve Hughes, of course, who had that monstrous pole position, but we do believe he had a penalty in the pit lane that spoiled his chances of the club win, and then subsequently led to our 7-way battle for the club victory, of which Adam Lynch had to try and carve his way through. And we'll mention there the fact if he hadn't had the spin, he feels so he could have taken the win, but in the end of the spin, meaning he had to settle for second, but he's happy with that, particularly with all the battling, and well, it set a precedent for the rounds ahead. And whatever the club class is going to be like this every round, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, I think our Inter and our Pro classes have definitely got a big margin to beat with regards to keeping themselves just as exciting. But to be fair, it's only been one round. We've got another 9 to go. I'm sure there's going to be stories up and down the order all the way to the very end of the show. But with that, that concludes our interviews, and let's take a look back at who exactly we've spoken to tonight. And so, we've had 4 interviews this evening. Our first interview of the season for the Superstars was Jared Love for DDK with RaceStatBot.com, taking pole position in the interclass qualifying session and taking the class win as well, albeit pushed the distance by Coral Roy, but he was able to hold on. Jordan Butler was then up for the club class of Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, enjoying himself there with a top 5 in qualifying and a podium come the checkered flag. Then to Alfred Kerstein we spoke, the sim strapped by Glass Tech Racing Dry, having a bit of a frustrating day at the office, particularly with it going wrong in the pit lane, picking up a penalty for pit entry, and also then subsequently damage to the car in the second stint, which really forced him out of contention. But we saw a top 5 pace from him, and he was chasing the podium before the pit stop, so therefore we look forward to what he can do next time out, the interclass driver. Adam Lynch took what was second place in qualifying in the club class and second place in the road in the end, but had to fight for every millimetre of ground and enjoyed himself every step of the way. So plenty of great stories from all 4 of our drivers there, and we've got plenty more stories to come as the season goes on, ladies and gentlemen. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up.
thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid here at SimRacing International and join our series, well, the best thing to do is use the link at the very bottom of your screen, as you can see there, and it takes you to the official Discord. And the wonderful thing is that is the beating heart of the community, and you won't be in a happier place when it comes to being welcomed, whether you're an esports professional all the way through to a rookie racer. There's a spot for you here at SimRacing International. And in terms of what we're going on currently, you've been tuning, of course, to today, the Thursday evening GT3 Championship, of which you've been watching the Superstars split, and we have that every Thursday evening, and we're in season 12 of that series. Meanwhile, on Friday evening, so tomorrow you'll be seeing round number 2 of it, we have the GT Championship season 2, where we go back in time to the 2023 GTE machines, and we get to bring them back to life there with fast and furious racing action. If you're more of a Sunday racer, you can, of course, join us on the grid for the Sunday GT3 Showdown, the UK Sim Racing Series, in its 18th season, now rebadged as the Sunday Showdown, with a whole new rule set, which will be unveiling when the racing gets underway this current weekend. But if you're looking for something far more casual, something just to simply dip your toes in and get some practice, well, of course, we do have our practice league, which is free to join and runs on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So, regardless of when you want to race, there's something here for you at SimRacing International, and definitely it's a great time to get on the grid, and we'd love to have you. We'd also like to take this moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Cawte, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, Motorsport UK's esports division, and a huge thank you to them for recognising us as a recommended community, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and onwards. Is very proud of that recognition. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to recognise when we need to bring the curtain down on round number 1. But don't fret, because in a week's time, on Thursday the 9th of April 2026, we're going to be roaring away to Belgium for the first of 2 visits to the country, and we're going to be starting off everyone's favourite Belgian circuit is, of course, going to be a trip to the Ardennes Forest for the legendary Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And as we have seen today, in the Pro class, Milton Tomlinson Dennis was not quite touchable, although Niels Bacage tried to stay close as much as possible, and did Justin Hembery. Meanwhile, in the Inter category, it was Jared Love and Carl Roy who set the timing sheets alight in qualifying in the race. And as for the club class, it was pandemonium. But in the end, the only driver who could make sense of it all was Jack Giles. But indeed, with over 10 drivers competing for the victory at different points in the race, it's anybody's guess who'll be on top in club next time out. So come join us live from circuit side in round number 2 as we continue the story of the season. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, you've been tuning in to the Superstar split of the Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12, brought to you by SimRacing International. We indeed have been the SRI community. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and have an absolutely brilliant Easter holiday ahead. And most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.